Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Peace and love, y'all. This is Brother Ali. Thank you for being here on the Travelers Podcast. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I missed last week. Please forgive me. I'll explain in a moment. But we just aired our episode or posted our episode with Brother Jay from the Mighty X Clan. That's a major episode for me, and I got so much incredible feedback from it. People that listen to the podcast every week told me that that was their favorite episode, which means a lot to me because Brother Jay is somebody who is all up and through my DNA as an MC, as an artist, and as a person. Like the type of human being that I wanted to grow up to be is deeply influenced by Brother Jay and a few others like him. And I had met Brother Jay, but we never really sat and talked before. And when I have these feelings with people, like I feel so deeply connected to somebody, when I sit and talk to them, that kind of discovery that like, yes, we're on the same page. And yes, there's a lot for me to learn from you. And yes, there's a lot that you can help me to understand and to grow and develop and refine within myself. And yes, I have something that I can offer you, you know, even to add on to what you're offering is really, really such a beautiful gift. And so for people, for you to be able to experience that, it's like everybody on this podcast is somebody that I had that moment with, or that I came up with, or somebody, sometimes these moments happen like during the actual conversation when we're recording. And that was one like that. So it just means a lot for me to be talking about something that I observed in his life and career and work and message. And I'm saying it and I was like, I can barely get through saying it because he's nodding so hard. Like, yes, 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 absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You know, that type of stuff. We all need validation, and I'm one of we all. So validation like that means a lot to me because this is a big part of the way that I understand myself and understand the world and my place in it. So that was a beautiful episode. Thank you so much to everybody that gave us feedback. I did not record an episode and post one last week. That's not true. I recorded an episode, and after I finished recording it, I thought I might not have been in the right heart space to offer to my community what's best coming from me. And so in some ways, this will be me revisiting some of the things that I actually did record last week. I didn't post it, and I didn't have an opportunity until now to re-record. I have had an extremely busy time. And so maybe I'll just start with that. Istanbul I've been living in Istanbul for 3.5 years with my family. And it's an extremely beautiful place on so many levels. I mean, just the natural beauty here is amazing. And especially if you're here in spring. So May in Istanbul is undefeated. I always say that. But even in June, like it hasn't gotten very, very hot yet. In July and August, it gets really hot. But in June, it's still not really all the way there yet. And sometimes you still get some cooler days. Although I do have to say, coming from Minnesota, I used to visit places like this a lot. Like, alhamdulillah, I've been able to travel and visit the Muslim world with my teachers and communities and friends. And, you know, so I've spent time in Lebanon and Saudi Arabia and West Africa, South Africa, different places in the Middle East, Malaysia, been to Turkey several times and things like that. And the list goes on. But always when I go, it's like my body is not acclimated to this kind of heat. I've always been profoundly overweight. I'm much less overweight than I was in those days. Down about 50 pounds, and I've still got another 15 or 20 to go to get to my 3-year goal. I do a lot of tangents, but one of the tangents is that my birthday is coming up at the end of July, and 3 years ago on my birthday, I set a goal. And I'd actually talked to a therapist about it because there's a dear friend of mine who lives here in Istanbul, my man Ahmed Fahmi, really, really dear friend of mine. His brother is a really well-known Muslim sheikh, Sheikh Yasser Fahmi. And his sister is a really well-known activist for the rights of Muslims, anti-Islamophobia, things like that. But he's this beautiful dude, like him and his family and his children. Our children go to school together. And just like, I love this guy. I'm actually, this microphone I'm talking into, his son, my nephew, Yusuf, I was talking to him about starting this podcast when I first moved here. And he said, yeah, you need a Shure SM7B microphone. And don't buy it here in Istanbul because the markup is so high. We have people coming from America all the time. I'll order one for you and I'll have somebody bring it to you. And so somebody brought me the microphone and a big like boom arm, like the thing that you know, the mounts to your table. So one of his aunties like brought this whole thing for me in the mail. So, or on the plane, like as part of her luggage. And alhamdulillah, I mean, the Muslim community, like any immigrant community that lives as a diaspora, like spread out around the world, we do that where people know. So my man James Huff is coming in a couple weeks. Muslim brother, very, very major supporter of this podcast. He's part of that top tier like caravan group. James Huff is a beautiful dude, really beautiful friend of mine, very involved in a community that I love in DMV area called Center DC. Yeah, really important friend and just part of our community. So he's coming in a couple weeks. And man, my wife is doing Target orders for him, like all type of stuff that we can't get in America, like the cereal that my wife and daughters miss. There's seasonings that I can't get here. It just doesn't taste the same. Like there's times where I want to cook the food that I remember from home. There's certain cheese you can't, there's certain stuff you can't get here. And so when you live in a diasporic community that's spread out around the world, everybody knows that when you go from one country to another, you have your luggage, but then you also have a lot of space just to bring things back and forth for people because it's really important. So yeah, shout out to Yusuf, Fahmi, and their whole family. But I talked to my man Ahmed, who used to be heavy, but now he runs marathons and triathlons and decathlons and dylons and everything else. Like this man is just, and he's not doing it for the looks or for show. He's not trying to be big. He doesn't look crazy. He just looks like and moves and behaves like a really profoundly healthy human being, especially for our age. I think we're around the same age. But man, so I spoke to him when I first moved here and I said, look, I'm one of the things about moving to another country is I'm finally going to take my health seriously. And he said, okay, I can give you some things to start. I can give you some exercises to do. He connected me with a trainer. It got me to the gym in our neighborhood where there's people that speak English and all that stuff. And he said, I can give you some things to eat. I can give you some times to eat. I can give you some, and you'll see some immediate results in all of these things. But it's not going to be long lasting and it's not going to be major, real change in your life until you address what's your relationship with food. And that's going to get into your relationship with your body and ultimately your own emotions. And so I remember that there's a therapist that my wife is a Black, Latina, Black and Puerto Rican Muslim therapist, which is very rare. And there's a community of Black women therapists. And so she follows a woman named Dr. Ebony. What is Dr. Ebony's last name? Maybe I'll remember in a second. But she goes by Dr. Ebony. And Dr. Ebony has a podcast and a book called Food is Not Bae. And so I started listening to that and I reached out to Dr. Ebony. Dr. Ebony's on the podcast and it's a dope episode. Really, really profoundly dope. Just about therapy in general, about relationship with food. Please go back and listen to that episode if you haven't in a while or revisit it. So Dr. Ebony says, if you want to make a profound change like that, give yourself 3 years. Because in 3 years, what will happen is you'll fluctuate, you'll, make a lot of progress, you'll lose some ground. But if you stretch it out over 3 years, no matter what, it will be an actual adjustment and adaptation and refinement and growth in your overall state of being. It won't just be a diet. And she says, diets are the enemy. Diet culture is the enemy. These things are just trying to sell you on certain ideas so that they can get your money, but they're not actually making you healthier. They're not actually making you more lean and healthy and well over time. She said that those things are not something you can buy and sell. And it ultimately is a way of regulating and being with our own emotions. Like so often we eat the wrong things or too much or something like that just because we have emotions that we don't know how to cope with. So if I'm bored or if I'm sad or if I'm scared or I'm anxious or something like that that's disrupting my inner peace that I feel like is outside of my control. if I smash a pizza or eat some ice cream or whatever the thing is, those are the problems for me. If I'm a mess up, that's my favorite. Those are my go-to, it's time to go off track things. And so if that's the case, if a person were to go to those things or whatever it is and eat, then while I'm eating, I feel good or excitement. And then afterwards I feel bad, but there is a feeling, there's a very strange sense of agency, sovereignty, empowerment that's not real, but it's like, at least I am not feeling the sadness, the boredom, the fear, the anxiety, the regret, whatever I was sitting with that I didn't have control over. I changed my emotional state to, full or shame or whatever around this food that I ate. So it feels like I'm doing something about my emotions. So once I learn some coping techniques, once I start to actually be with my emotions, once I start to be more comfortable sitting in the heat of my own reality, once I grow more comfortable with that, then I'll be able to handle it. By the way, one of my unfinished tangents that I just said is that Istanbul, speaking of sitting in the heat, Istanbul can be a little hot. And coming from America, and I used to travel this part of the world, I would just sweat and be uncomfortable, and my clothes were never right. That's how I started talking about this, because I lost weight. But being in this part of the world now for a few years, I mean, I can wear a jacket when it's 80 outside. Yeah, and I do, like a lot of times my default setting is to wear religious kind of clothes. And so, long pants, a jacket that goes down, that like covers the body and maybe even goes down just above the ankles. It's a big part of what we do. And a hat, and my body is really adjusted to the heat, and a big part of that is in losing weight. So all of that stuff has been really beautiful. I'm coming up on the birthday that will mark the 3-year point, and I have not hit that mark. But it's okay. Like I've made profound progress. It has absolutely changed the way that I live. I'm going to keep on keeping on. I still have a full month. My birthday's at the end of the month. And so I'm going to keep on working at it. But we'll see. It's probably more weight than I should realistically lose in a month. But we shall see. It is possible to do, but I think it's like 15 pounds. Probably 2-3 pounds a week is probably the most that a person should lose. You know what I mean? Where that would be closer to 4 or 5 pounds a week. I think I could do it, but that would be on some diet culture stuff if I did those things. But I've just learned a lot. Like I'm learning my body, I'm learning my emotions, I'm learning the way that I feel if I eat certain things. It's a really beautiful thing that I'm really grateful for. But Istanbul is beautiful this time of year, and a lot of people come. So I've had a lot of company for the last month. And there's some dope things that I've been working on that are, we're bringing closer and closer and closer to bringing to fruition, to let you know about. One of the things that I want to let you know about is that we're bringing back Blood on Beats. So Blood on Beats is our month-long interactive songwriting workshop that we do online. But it's interactive. Like I'm in the classes, I'm in the groups. We have a Slack channel where people communicate throughout the week. Like I give exercises and assignments, and I'm really present on that Slack channel. So we keep the class sizes small. We usually do two cohorts, and they're only 30 people each. So usually it's only 60. We could open it up this time maybe and do 90 participants. The people in the top tier of the caravan, they get it for free. They get most of the things that we do for free, the releases and things like that, if we can. We did a hat that we were donating the proceeds to the Muhammad Ali Scholarship. And so there was a limited number of those, so we couldn't give those to the caravan for free. But the caravan gets access to most of the things that we do. When the Love and Service album dropped, it's deluxe limited, double vinyl, and they all just got a copy because, they support what we do so tough. But with Blood on Beats, this is an interactive songwriting workshop where we get into the nuts and bolts of, specifically how to write hip hop lyrics, how to write hip hop songs. We talk about the rhythm of it. I have a method that I developed along with Slug from Atmosphere about how to annotate lyrics, so that, one of the things that people know if you write your rhymes down is that you write your raps thinking of a certain beat or listening to a certain beat. And then oftentimes, even if you write it and then an hour later you go to the microphone or in the booth or whatever to record it, it's like, man, now I can't remember exactly how these words were landing on the beat. So annotating lyrics is a way of really letting ourselves know, how is this supposed to interact with the music? And it also really helps cadence, it helps delivery, it helps our rhythm to be able to look at a sheet of paper almost like sheet music, to know there is this many syllables, there are this many places, and where is each syllable going to go? A lot of times people, when they're early in their journey, they overdo it, especially people that come from my world. So if you're listening to Lupe Fiasco and Brother Ali and Talib Kweli and Black Thought and Homeboy Sandman and Asar Rock and, the people that a lot of times we're listening to, these are lyrical, spiritual, miracle rappers, blah, 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 you know what I mean? So our cohort of artists, we do a lot. They say that we're from the try-hard generation. Like, we're trying to out-rap each other. Hieroglyphics, crude, that's what we're about. We're trying to go and internal rhymes and all this kind of stuff. Eminem and all the, that's what that's Locksmith. We're on that. Crooked Eye. The list goes on. Chino XL, come on. Chino XL is incredible. Chino XL is one of the most underrated, and often people say that about me a lot, so that's something he and I have in common. But a lot of times a person is underrated because they're just busy being great and they're not marketing themselves and they're not telling everybody, I'm one of the best. When people want to win a Grammy, you have to let everybody know for your consideration. You have to let people know, I want a Grammy. I want to be nominated and considered for a Grammy. For your consideration, here's this. When Killer Mike, who's another, try-hard rapper like us, LP, shout out to all these amazing MCs, Nas. I mean, the great rappers are that way. Even Snoop Dogg, that has a very, very straightforward and sometimes perfectly simplistic style. We also love artists like that. Guru from Gangstar. You can say so much with so little if you're that type of master. It's a long way to go when you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're going when you're lost. It's a long way to go when you don't know where. And, when I was a kid, I used to think that those type of artists were a little less than. Like, that's cool, but Rakim is better. Like, that's cool, but Coogee Rap is better. That's fine, but, but as I grow and as I started, and I made an album with Evidence called Secrets and Escapes, where I was in Evidence's world, Mr. Slow Flow. Like, it's about being straightforward. Pick the right words. Don't be all over the place. This is not that type of bebop. This is cool jazz. Ba, 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 ba. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to play the right notes. We're not playing all the notes. So again, with Ev, I started thinking about it like that. And I realized, somebody like, I always loved Phife Dawg, rest in peace, but I never saw him as a top tier artist until I started trying to write simple rhymes intentionally and just think about things in that way. And I still barred out on the album that I made with him, Secrets and Escapes. Go check it out. It didn't get any marketing or anything like that. It dropped during the pandemic. But I really grew an appreciation for Phife Dawg, for example, because when you rhyme like that, you can make a perfect song where every word is in its proper place. You know what I mean? And, microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? 5-foot assassin with the roughneck business. Float like gravity. Never had a cavity. Got more rhymes than the Warners got family. No need to sweat. I said, like, that's different than shaking them up and breaking them up, taking them stuff, standing on shaky ground, no close to the edge. Let's see if I know the ledge. It's different than a lot of the artists that I grew up loving. But I mean, You get in a party or you get with a room full of people, everybody knows every lyric to Five Dog's verse. And it's perfect. And I've really come to learn to appreciate that. But one of the things we do in Blood on Beats is we talk about annotating hip hop lyrics on a regular sheet of paper, or if you're typing on your phone or your computer, so that we know where every syllable goes. And we start to, it transforms our relationship with the words and with syllables and how those words interact with the music. And then we get into the spirituality of it as well. We get into crafting songs. We get into what it means, how to write songs that really connect with other people, how to tell stories, it's deep, and we get deep in the weeds in it. And I love it. And every year people that take this course love this course. And so we've only been able to do it annually. Honestly, I would do this 3 times a year, but it's a full month. I'm really committing my time for a month. Like, I'm not going to do anything for the month of August. And this year it's going to be in August. So we'll start advertising it soon. Go to brotherali.com. Sign the mailing list, because that's the way to really be first on all this stuff and really stay in touch and in tune with what we're doing. So that's coming. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm so looking forward to that. It's a major time commitment for me. So the nights that we do those in America, it's daytime, but for me, it's literally the middle of the night. And so for each cohort, I do weekly 2-hour sessions where I'm present the whole time. There's live, question and answer. I give a presentation, demonstration, but we talk through the origins and the beginnings of hip hop music and culture and lyricism. And then also there's a notebook that we created. We created our own notebook with that we give as a gift to the people that are in the cohort as well. So, that stuff, that's really, really profound. And it's a deep time commitment. So if we have 2 cohorts at a time, that means that I'm teaching for 4 hours straight. And it's directly in the middle of the night for me here in Istanbul. So that's why I'm not able to do it more than once a year. But the past years that we've done it sold out really quickly. And, we also try to hold scholarships for younger people. And then sometimes people will come in and just buy 2 slots and say, give it to somebody. So if you sign the mailing list at brotherali.com, you'll be the first to know about that. But yeah, it's just been a very busy time, and I've been working on a lot of things that you will hear about soon. If you want to kind of put some things together as I describe what my past month has been like, then that's for you to do. You're free to draw connections, and, if you're feeling jumpy, you can jump to conclusions if you want to. But so a lot of people have been in Istanbul. The beginning of this month, of the solid month of having company and guests in town, was B+, iconic, amazing, legendary photographer. He's originally from Ireland, and he's got amazing stories of growing up as a hip hop head in Ireland. And so for example, he went and saw Public Enemy open for either Run DMC in Dublin in 1987 or something like that, 88. And side stage, when Public Enemy is doing their thing, he looked over and saw Sinead O'Connor in the audience and with the people, just rocking out to their music, So he's got a lot of stories like that. And then he moved to LA. He's an incredible photographer, went to art school, moved to LA, and he ended up photographing Eazy-E and Tupac and, everybody. And then he was the art director for Rap Pages. And for those that weren't around during that time, Rap Pages was the underground hip hop magazine, the indie underground version of, the Source was underground at one point too. But we also had XXL, and we have Vibe magazine that was started by Quincy Jones, that was very clean and glossy and things like that. We had a variety of hip hop publications. And then also before that, there was, Word Up magazine. These magazines that were basically teen magazines back in the day. Back in the 80s, they had, I think there was one called Teen Bop or something like that. And, all the teen idols and sensations at that time, you would buy the magazine. There's, articles about them, their favorite foods, and what do they what does Corey Haynes look for in a girl, and who does Tiffany whatever want to date or something. They did that basically for rappers. So there was a magazine called Word Up, and Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the magazine. Tupac or Biggie said. So it was like that. You would get these. They would be a fold out poster inside the magazine, multiple ones, and you put them up, putting pictures on my wall. That's what that was. So when Rap Pages came along, it was street and it was gritty, and it just had a certain feeling to it. And I remember this really hardcore poster of Ice Cube that was in Rap Pages at that time. And I asked B+, like, yo, did you shoot this? And he said, yeah, I think I did. There's an iconic cover of Rap Pages where Janet Jackson is on the cover without a shirt on, and Old Dirty Bastard is standing behind her, providing cover for her, providing cover with his hands. And B+ shot that. So there was a lot of stuff that he did during that time. And then also he went on to do a lot of things. There's so much I'm going to leave out, but I really can't do justice to his whole story right now. But he also was really involved with MF Doom and with J Dilla and with Madlib and that whole crew of people. So there's this really beautiful, amazing, famous documentary of Madlib and JD in Brazil, like shopping for records. And it's like, the two of them going out every day and then buying records and coming back to the hotel room and just playing records for each other and geeking out over these records, and then making beats direct on the, can't remember if it was the SP404 or the MPC, but they're making beats next to each other in Brazil, just hearing the records like, oh my God, and these amazing records came out of those sessions. I meant to ask him, but I think the Erykah Badu, The Healer, that Madlib did, I think that came out of those sessions. I'm not sure about that, but just so many iconic things that this man has been a part of. And he's Irish. And so, and B+'s dad came from Ireland, because, he said, oh, you're going to Istanbul. So B+'s dad is like, I've never been to Istanbul. It's one of the cities I've always wanted to go to. So not only was I with B+, and he was taking pictures of me, early in the morning, late at night, late nights, early mornings, but then also I'm able to hang out with him, spend time with him, and also have his dad in Istanbul. And talking to the two of them about the history of Ireland, it just really made me realize I've always known this in the back of my mind, where I think a lot of people knew something about Palestine. They know like the Palestinians are being occupied, the Palestinians are being, treated like they're not human, colonized, and they're being exterminated. A lot of people knew that, but it took October 7th to really be like, okay, let me get involved in this now. I've always known that I should be part of this. With me, the plight of Palestine has been since I became Muslim when I was 15 years old. And so that's been very deeply part of my experience. My version of that, though, is that I've always known, partially because of BK1, who's Italian and Irish, that, the role of the Irish, particularly in relationship with the English, the British, in relationship to the idea of whiteness, of Westernness, of Europeanness, of colonialism, and everything that comes along with it. Their role in that and their relationship to that stuff is very unique. And, they were colonized and they were starved and they were oppressed and they were treated like they weren't human beings. Their land was stolen from them. The women were violated. Their resources were stolen. Sinead O'Connor has this really dope off the head freestyle that she does. She's got a band playing behind her and she's freestyling. They talk about the famine. There was no famine. It was a planned starvation. I'm not going to get the words right, but it's along those lines. For generations, the Irish were feeding the world. Our food went everywhere. We produced so much. Our land is fertile. She said the British came in and stole our food and gave us potatoes. That's the only thing that we could eat. And so, and then she says, because we never got a chance to have a public conversation to process what happened to us in that time, that's why we started drinking. And that's why we start fighting. And that's why we start, and they had a resistance. They had armed resistance, and they had, everything from people making art and singing and organizing and protesting and doing journalism and writing and all of these things. But they also had armed resistance. They also had, people that had car bombs and people that were, looking to actually have an armed resistance against an armed occupation. So it's like the occupiers come in and they're there with guns and bombs and they're killing people. And if you don't do, and the threat of being killed is always there for the indigenous population that are doing nothing more than just living in their bodies, in their land, in their homes. And so they're under constant threat. That's what occupation is. That's what colonialism is. And so if they resist being colonized and controlled by somebody else, oftentimes they resist in a military way. Oftentimes they resist. It's like, that's what you're bringing to us. And so this is what we're going to bring to you. We're going to call out to the rest of the world. Look at what's happening to us. Are you guys going to allow this to happen? And if the answer seems to be, well, we're not going to help you, then it's like, the people will do whatever they need to do. And especially there'll be a particular party of the people that will respond militarily as part of the human condition. And I just saw a clip where someone was saying that Americans always root for the rebellion. We watch Star Wars and root for the rebellion. We watch all these movies and we root for the rebellion. But we don't realize we're the empire. Americans are, we're the empire. We're not the Jedis. You know what I'm saying? We're not the resistance. We're not the rebellion. We're the empire. We're the machine. And we're colonizing all these other people around the world and financing it and supporting it and funding it and arming it and supporting and lying about it and covering it up and gaslighting and facilitating and protecting and defending ideologically in every other way. And if people have something to say about it, suddenly free speech doesn't apply anymore. And if people just say, well, I don't want my money to go to that. Students saying, we don't want our money to go to that, and demanding that, then, they're pushed out of their graduations and the police come in and all sorts of craziness. So that is a reality in Ireland. And I've always known that this is something that I need to really dig in on. This is something that's going to help me and feed me and educate me and round out and give me a more full understanding of this common enemy that we're fighting. The common enemy isn't anybody's particular color, but I will say, as a person who is of European origin myself, that Europe seems to be at the center of it all. You know what I mean? But what's interesting there is that the Irish really show that it's not always racial. It's not always only racial. There normally is a racial element to it, but there was something about the Irish where they weren't seen as white right away. So the Italians and the Irish, for example, and even the Polish in certain areas, there was an initial conception of whiteness that didn't include them. And then if you study, there was an expansion of whiteness that eventually did include them. And so there are, Italians that weren't considered white, that weren't considered American. And then there was an expansion, and then there was a first kind of generation that was. And the same thing happened with the Irish. And there are people oftentimes, from Ireland or from Italy and other places where that happens that are like, why are you trying to assimilate? Why are you trying to be part of this? Like, a generation ago, we weren't considered part of this, and then suddenly you're becoming the poster child and the face and the defenders and the police and the whatever, defending all of this stuff. And that was a reality with a lot of people as whiteness expanded. So I've always known that the Irish were a really important thing for me to grow in understanding, but being able to have that time with B plus, and especially with his dad, and to talk about what that's meant for them. And the Irish are profound supporters of the Palestinians. The Irish were profound supporters of the South Africans. The Irish understand what this thing is. And so to them, it's about the reality of the living of life, of liberation. You know, they're anti-colonial because they know what that's about. And so anybody so they're rocking with liberty and humanity and with a way of being indigenous and original over the concept of whiteness. So it's like, man, I need to know this. And so that was a major breakthrough for me, along with just the honor and privilege and pleasure that it was to just kick it with B plus and his dad. So shout out to them. That was really, really, really powerful. And then right when they left, but it's a long, Istanbul is a city where if you know somebody and are connected, you have a profoundly different experience than if you just go as a tourist, especially if people are looking to visit Istanbul for spiritual, historical, religious reasons. The Turks are split almost down the middle, secular and religious. And there are areas of the city that are very secular, and there are areas that are religious, and then there's different expressions of both. So we live on the Asian side of Istanbul in a neighborhood called Üsküdar, but a lot of people will come to Istanbul and just be like, well, where are the hotels? Let me book a hotel. And they'll stay in a neighborhood called Kadıköy. There's Karaköy and Kadıköy. Kadıköy, köy means village. And these are like little pockets of, these are little villages that weren't part of the original city of Istanbul. They were added and developed later. They used to be forests. They were like villages, in sometimes in the middle of the city. But the original city is like, a few different regions, a few different, almost like boroughs. But Kadıköy was a Christian neighborhood. And there are Christian neighborhoods and Jewish neighborhoods and Byzantine neighborhoods and Roman neighborhoods, all within the city of Istanbul. Because one of the things that we're so proud of, the Muslims that live here, is that Islam is a religion that recognizes the validity of other religions, especially that those were. Now, the traditional Islamic belief is that when God sends another prophet, the believers are to follow that prophet, but that they all are continuations of each other, that they all brought the same message. Some of their code of conduct will vary from community to community. Each one of them was speaking to their community, their people at that time. And what the Muslims believe is that when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, comes, he's the culmination of all of them. He's the seal of all of them. He's the prophet that is, in the last period of human existence, that where the world becomes a global community, where history is being written and recorded. And so the message is profoundly preserved. The Quran is the exact Quran everywhere in the world that's always been. Every single minute letter and detail is intact. There's no disagreement about it. 12-year-olds memorize the Quran. My daughter is 6 years old, and she's well on her way to memorizing the whole Quran. And they memorize it specifically. And you can get different translations of the Quran, but the Arabic in every Quran, since there have been Qurans, is exactly the same. And so much so that if there were mistakes, those Qurans would actually be destroyed. It was the third Khalifa, Uthman, Allah be pleased with him, that started to have the Qur'ans actually written all together in a book, because the Qur'an was a series of recitations that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, over the 23 years that he was outwardly expressing himself as a prophet. So that's the Qur'an. But then also the stories and the accounts of the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, are preserved perfectly in a way that no other human life has been documented. And there are also possessions that belong to him. All of these things that were in his possession that have been maintained. So for example, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, there's a lot of tangents today, but the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was aware that he had someone who believed and supported his mission named Owais. And Owais wanted, he lived outside of Mecca and Medina, but he heard the message of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he believed and he became a Muslim. He said his Shahada. So to become a Muslim, a person just has to desire to be a Muslim. They can't be coerced or forced or pressured. They have to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I bear witness that there are no other gods with God. That any conception of God, God is not a thing, God is not a person, God is not any of the things that people worship along with God, that those things are not, there's no substitute for the source, for the universal source of all things, the creator of all things, the Most High, the source of all love, the source of all mercy, the source of all beauty, the source of all guidance, that is Allah. And that, there's no other God that some people have access to or some people have a special claim to. There will be no substitute for the universal source and creator of all things and all people, and that we all have an intrinsic relationship with the Most High, with the creator, with the source. We all have this intrinsic relationship and we all have access equally, and we've all been willed into existence exactly as we are. And so any concept, anything that we would consider to be an idol will be something that will be in somebody's possession. When people say, human beings come along and mess this stuff up. Well, the first way that happens, first of all, it's not always like that. There are good people in history that were powerful. Power doesn't corrupt everybody. The people who are spiritually aligned can become profoundly powerful and profoundly virtuous. And Istanbul is a city that's full of people buried here that were that way. And that's part of what we love. So to become a Muslim, a person says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I bear witness that nothing is God except for the one creator, that nothing will be a false God. The one unseen creator who's outside of space and time, who is not a person and is not a thing and doesn't belong to anybody, is absolutely unchanging and everlasting, without beginning or end, and self-sustaining, and unlike anything that we know in the created world, the material world, but that the creator is the one that brought all of that into being. And then we say, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And I witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the continuation, the culmination, the seal of all the prophets. So in Islam, the Muslims believe and know, first of all, that there will always be other religions. There will always be Christians. There will always be Jewish people. There will always be other religions. And that at least at one time, the source of those religions was valid. And so people's attraction is based, and so the Christians always have rights when it comes to the Muslims, to the religion of Islam. Certainly there have been Christian or Muslims that have violated the rights of Christians. Absolutely. Believing in Islam doesn't mean believing in a certain church or believing that specific leaders are infallible, especially in Sunni Islam. The prophets are infallible. We believe that about the prophets. All the Muslims believe that about prophets. Prophets don't sin. Prophets are human, but they don't have faults, and they don't have those type of faults. They don't have those type of issues and problems. They are virtuous in every way. Doesn't mean they know everything. Doesn't mean they never make mistakes. Doesn't mean they don't sleep or have sensations or appetites. They do. They have all those things. They are human, but they are people that are proof. It's like, what would it look like if somebody were exactly what God intended when creating all of us? That's who the prophets are. They're the only people that are infallible. Then we also have people that are considered perfected human beings. And there are perfected men and perfected women. Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad, who's British, was pointing out that in Christianity, the only model for perfect womanhood is Mary. And in Islam, she's also one of the models for perfect women in Islam. But he was just pointing out how interesting it is that in Christianity, that's the one woman that's seen as perfect, and she was a virgin. She was a receptive person. She was in some ways seen as this untouched, docile soul, and she is that, and we believe in her, and we love her, and she's talked about extensively in the Quran, and we believe her to be a perfected person, that this is a human being that lived, that had no bad intentions, that did not oppress, that did not lie, that did not steal and cheat, and did not harm people, and didn't wrong people. There are people like that in the world. But we also have many other women in the Islamic tradition. Khadija, for example, was the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 15 years his elder. She was a woman who was formerly married, and she was the CEO of her enterprise. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was her employee, and she did business with him, and she hired him for things. And that's how she grew to be so fond of him, because this man is known for being so moral and so just and so virtuous and so upright and so truthful and so beautiful and so handsome, the most handsome person that ever lived. That's what the Muslims believe. She's like, this man is amazing. And so she asked a friend of hers, why don't you ask the Prophet Muhammad? He wasn't outwardly a prophet yet. She said, why don't you ask Muhammad if he would consider marriage? And so a mutual friend asked him, and he said, of course I would, but I don't have the means to marry a lady like Khadija. And so they worked it out. He got it together. He saved some money. He put together, and he married her. And it's known that polygamy was the common way of building families at that time. So a man would have several wives, and they would have children, and they each had their own homes, and they each had their own kind of domain. And, in traditional life, the society is not built around money. Society is built around family. So in the modern West, everything, the power is in the money. And so whoever makes the money has the power. So, the men have had first access to making money. So the women's movement in the modern world is about this is a society that's centered around money. So if you have money, you get to make the decisions. If you have money, you have a better chance of not being abused and oppressed. So women need equal access to money because that's the focus of this society. And so the home is just where you go to put all your money in to rest until it's time to go make more money. And so the things that are done in the home are seen as chores. So women stay home, they do the chores. Men go out and do the important thing. In traditional indigenous societies and cultures, real culture, the home is the center of everything. People's homes and their family, the family is the most important thing in the world. And so, and women men and women share leadership of the family in different ways. So it's matriarchal and patriarchal at the same time. And women run the home, which is the place of the family, and they make the decisions. And so actually what men do to go make money is secondary. Money is just a means. Money is not an end in these societies. So go do your chores. A man is doing chores when he goes out to work. It's go get on a motorcycle, deliver water to people, and then bring the money back so that we can get to real life. So it's profoundly different relationship with these things. And in most traditional cultures, men were polygamous and still are in a lot of places. And so a man would have, multiple wives. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did that for the second half of his adult life. But for the first half of his adult life, he was married to one woman, the lady Khadija, and he loved her more than anybody in the world. Peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad, Allah be well pleased with our mother Khadija. All the wives of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they're like our mothers. We love them like we love our mothers. And so all the ladies in the world named Khadija, Queen Latifah on Living Single, everybody named Khadija is named after this woman. And she was a boss, literally, and a CEO, and she funded the Prophet Muhammad. She was also this always really gets to me, but she was the Prophet Muhammad's therapist. We have this story where the Prophet Muhammad was so troubled by the things that his society had fallen into. He was born into privilege, peace be upon him. He was born into the most prestigious clan in the most prestigious tribe, but his parents died. His father died before he was born. His father's name was Abdullah. His mother's name was Amina. And they both passed away. The father passed away before he was born. His mother passed away not long after. So he was raised by his uncles. And he marries Khadija, and he's so troubled by what's going on in society that he goes up into a cave. If you look on my Instagram, you can see where me and my jerky, half-blind self climbed to the top of this mountain so that I could go into the cave. It's about a year ago. If you look back on my Instagram, you'll see when I went there. He goes to the top of a cave and he starts spending more and more time there, just being away from society, spending some time in seclusion, thinking, reflecting, pondering, really trying to make sure that he was sound. And what the Muslims believe is that he was visited by the angel Gabriel, who delivers the messages to all the prophets. And the angel Gabriel told him, "You're a prophet," and gave him the first revelation of the Quran. And so he comes down from the mountain and he runs to Khadija's house, to his wife, and he says, "Wrap me up in a blanket. I think I'm going crazy." And she says, "Well, what happened?" And she counsels him. And she says, "Well, look who you are. Like, look at you. You're not crazy. You're the most profoundly upright and trusted human being that any of us know." The people called him Al-Amin, and he was not a rich man. But Al-Amin means the trustworthy one, and they used him like a bank. So wealthy people would leave him entrust them with their wealth when they traveled. And he's not wealthy. Do you understand? Because they're like, even though this man isn't rich, I can leave. I mean, imagine you take somebody who is a laborer and you say, "Hey, hold this $1 million of gold and cash for me, of gold coins, while I'm gone. I'm going to be gone for 6 months traveling. I'm going to be traveling to Persia or whatever. When I get back, give it back to me." And you just trust this person who has nothing to hold on to your wealth. That's who he was in the society. Tangent on a tangent. Here it comes. Ready for this? When I came back from my first tour where I actually made money, I was in the process of I was going through a divorce with my first wife, and I lived in Slug from Atmosphere, his former childhood home. His brother owned it. His brother bought that home, and he let me live there because I was going through this divorce. Plano Bill, who's Atmosphere's DJ now, was living there too. He was in college, and he was broke. A lot of people are in college. And I didn't know him when I moved in. And one day, I'm going through this divorce, and I'm also, I'm just going through these profound changes in my life. And one day I'm in my room next to him, and I had a full-on breakdown. And I'm in there crying and moaning, and, and the next day I said to him, "Did you hear me last night?" And he said, "No, man." And just the way he said it was like, "No, man." And I'm like, I know he did. Because I could hear him scratching. He'd just be in there practicing turntablism, hours and hours and hours and hours a day. And I'm like, if I can hear him, he can hear me. And I finally said, "Hey, man, you sure you didn't hear me? I had a breakdown last night." He just looked at me, and I didn't know him. He just said, "What if I did? What if I did hear you, man?" And it's just like, oh, I love this guy. And I had just come home from tour, and I had this big envelope full of tens of thousands of dollars of cash. It's like, tens of thousands of dollars in this envelope. And my first wife came over while we were going through a divorce. And I said, "Man, I don't know what's about to go down." I didn't invite her. She's just on her way over. I knocked on his door, and I handed him this envelope full of tens of thousands of dollars. And he was extremely broke during that time. And I didn't even think about it, because it's like, she's on her way over. I just need her to not take my money. And so after it was done, I knocked and I said, "Hey, thanks for holding me. Can I get that back?" And he gave it to me. I didn't even look at it because I know he didn't even touch it. And that's a prophetic character. And that's how the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was. And she said, "Look at you. You are You're virtuous in every way. You're moral in every way. And you're known for that. You're not crazy. You're a prophet. And this is a time when prophets came and people knew that. And so Khadija, our mother Khadija, Allah be well pleased with her, her uncle was a Christian scholar who studied the Bible. His name was Waraqa. And so she took Muhammad, peace be upon him, to Waraqa and said, talk to my uncle. What? And he explained everything that happened. And Waraqa, as somebody that knew, Prophet Muhammad is spoken about in the Bible. Many people that study the Bible have different interpretations of things, but I think it's objectively clear that the Prophet Muhammad is being talked about in the Bible. And so he said, you're the prophet that people have been waiting for. And he said, I wish that I was a younger man because I would be with you. I would support you. Your people are going to turn you out because you're going to say, La ilaha illallah. They had all these, different well-to-do tribes. And the people of Mecca took the Kaaba, that black cube in Mecca, and they filled it with all these different idols so that the big wealthy people from all these different tribes all over the place would travel, and they got religious spiritual tourism. So when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, look, your individual tribal gods are not substitutes for the unseen source of it all. All of us are relating to the divine. The divine is not something that you made and that you own, and that you can't, a person's relationship with the divine is inherent, intrinsic. It's their right. And you can't say, well, we own the gods. The gods are where in this place and you got to pay us to come visit them. That's not the way that it works. And so he said, Waraka, Khadija's uncle, said, I wish I could be with you when your people turn you away and turn you out, but I'm an old man and I'm not going to be there. And so, we have these, but then we also have Aisha, these perfected women in Islam. So Khadija is one of the women prototypes, or like these archetypes of perfected women. So one of them is Mary, the mother of Jesus. Allah be well pleased with her. And some of us say peace be upon her. And then, and Allah did reveal to her, and Allah did speak to her. And we believe, we believe in Jesus, we believe in his mother. And, but then we also have Khadija, and as a perfected archetype of a perfected woman who's a CEO, she's a therapist, and she funded the early mission of the Muslims. And, none of us would be here if it wasn't for that woman. But then we also have Aisha. So after she passes away, the Prophet Muhammad is only married to her. And then after she passes away, he mourns her. He mourns her for the rest of his life. And then he marries other ladies. All the other ladies that he married were also either divorcees or widows. And they were all elder, like grown women. But it was suggested to him that he marry the daughter of his closest companion, Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr is a profound, amazing human being. And he is also a wealthy person. So he continues to help to fund the movement. Many, many times he gives all of his wealth to fund the movement and the community that the Prophet Muhammad is leading. And, it was a very common thing at that time that people would marry into each other's families. You know what I mean? So the Prophet Muhammad's daughters married his companions and he married theirs. And so sometimes people, when they want to talk bad about the Prophet Muhammad, will talk about the fact that he married this younger lady. But, the relationship that people have with sexuality in Islam and traditional people are that it's directly related to childbearing. So when people enter their puberty and their childbearing years, they start to marry. And so the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married two women around the same time. He married an elder lady, and he also married Khadija. And Aisha. Forgive me, Aisha. And Aisha becomes the head of a military that like goes out and meets people on the battlefield and commands a military. Aisha becomes one of the greatest scholars in Islam. Aisha becomes a person that scholars have to go to get her rulings on things. And she can say, the way that you're practicing this, or the way that you've related this is incorrect, or the way that you've said, she would actually correct some of the most profound people that are mentioned in the early days of Islam. And she also is somebody that was really outspoken when it came to the Prophet himself, peace be upon him. She would criticize him. She would challenge him. She would yell at him. And her father, Abu Bakr, would say, like, how can you yell at the messenger of Allah? And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would say, like, right now I'm her husband. She's not yelling at the Prophet Muhammad. She's yelling at her husband. And, and that she has the right to do that. So he brings her into mediated dispute. And he says, how dare you yell at the Prophet Muhammad? I said, wait a minute. This is between a husband and wife right now. And if I knew you were going to be harsh like this, like, you're not here to be biased. You know what I mean? You're here as her father. And so these really beautiful accounts. But Aisha is another one of the prototypes. Another one is Asiya, the wife of the Pharaoh. And not all of the pharaohs, but a specific pharaoh is seen as the archetype of oppressors. He's the archetype of oppressors, the pharaoh who opposed Moses and Aaron. And the people of Israel, Bani Israel, the people of that time. And, the Pharaoh was one of the most wicked oppressors of all time. When you talk about, we all have a Moses inside us and a Pharaoh inside of us. We all can be oppressors, and we all can also represent the oppressed. And so we always want to be in the party of Moses, not the party of Pharaoh. And we always want to be channeling our inner Moses and not our inner Pharaoh, because we all have that as part of the human condition. Asiya was one of the perfected women who was married to the Pharaoh. And so she is a model of speaking truth to power. She's a model of, enduring that abuse and doing it with dignity, and also speaking the truth. So in Islam, we've got all of these profound examples of perfected womanhood, that there's not one way to be a religious woman. And it's one of the things about this religion that if you talk to Muslim women, don't talk about them, talk to them. Like, talk to Zainab Ismail, who we had on this show, the Puerto Rican dancer, fitness guru, trainer, nutritionist, who converted to Islam and then went to Yemen and all these other places studying from some of the greatest scholars on earth. Talk to her about what it is to be a Muslim woman. Talk to her friend, sister Majida, who helps to run Masjid al-Taqwa, one of the biggest, most prominent mosques in New York City and in America, in Brooklyn. That's the mosque that Yasin Bey Mos Def grew up going to. Masjid al-Taqwa, one of the most well-known and respected imams in all of the Muslim community, especially in America, but he's loved all over the world. Imam Siraj Wahaj, who used to be a member of the Nation of Islam. When you hear him speak, he sounds a lot like Minister Farrakhan, because they came up together. But he's not in the Nation of Islam. He's a Sunni Orthodox Muslim. And that mosque is one of the most famous and active. I mean, we're talking about, this is a community that went into the projects and, worked with the drug dealers and things to clean up the projects. These are people and that's the type of Islam I grew up in. So there's a sister named Majida who has had a large hand in organizing and running things at that mosque. And most of our mosques, especially Black American inner city mosques, are run by women. The masjid that I used to be one of the imams at this masjid, Masjid An-Nur in North Minneapolis. Imam Makram Al-Amin is the imam there. His brother is Khalid Al-Amin, who played for UConn, basketball star. He also played for the Mavs and for the Bulls, and he actually played here in Turkey for a while. So like their family is prominent, and Imam Makram, that's my man. We just we're sending each other voice notes the other day. But everybody knows his mother, Arlene El-Amin, runs that mosque. And it's that way in a lot of our communities. She's making the decisions. And I mean, Allah bless him. I'm not saying this to undermine the Imam Makram in any way, but it's like, you're the imam because your mom runs the mosque. Not because of a nepotism thing, but like because of the fact that he is supported and directly connected to this family that leads our community. So, talk to Muslim women. Don't talk about them. You know what I mean? Reach out to Sister Arlene Elamine in North Minneapolis. You can reach out to Masjid An-Nur there. Talk to her what it is to her to be a Muslim woman. She converted to Islam in the Nation of Islam. She was a secretary for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Her name is mentioned in Message to the Black Man. She also is a mother to me. She fired me from a job. She rescued me from being homeless. She's like a mother to me. There was one time when she was looking around for something to beat me with. Like this, she's like a mother to me. Talk to these people. Talk to the village auntie, Sister Angelica Lindsay Ali, that we had on the podcast. Like, talk to Muslim women, especially people that convert to Islam. But I mean, also, talk to Fatima Knight, one of the first graduates. A black woman is one of the first graduates. I think she's in the first graduating class of Zaytuna College. Rashida Plenty, Mahassan. Talk to these Muslim women. Speak to Muslim women about what is it for you to be a woman as a Muslim. And in communities all over the world, but especially people that convert to Islam, people that chose to be Muslim. And they'll tell you. But one of the things that we love so much about this city, and when people come to visit it, is that there are these stories of amazing human beings that were very powerful, that were also virtuous, and they were upright, and they were good people. And they were people that, even though they had power, they didn't abuse their power. Even though they had subjects, they didn't abuse their subjects. And one of the things is that, and this is a big tangent, but here I come, I'm coming back. I always come back. Stick with me, I always come back. In Islam, it's understood that there will always be other religions. And particularly in Sunni Islam, it's always understood that there will be different schools of thought within the tradition. And so there's always different concepts and different ways of approaching and understanding things. We have things that are foundational, and those are things that we all have in common. But then we also have a lot that is open to interpretation, and there will be different ways of understanding. So that was one of the things that's always been part of. And one of the things that we're very proud of is that in the city of Istanbul, what I was saying is that people come and they stay in different neighborhoods. There's a Christian neighborhood in Istanbul because the Ottomans understood, and the Muslims have always understood, that Christians have rights when they're living under the care of Muslims, that they have their churches, and they even have their courts, and they have their communities, and they live under their religious law. And then also there's Jewish communities, and there's Jewish neighborhoods in Istanbul. And Bayezid II, who is one of the early sultans in the Ottoman Empire, especially when the Ottomans were entered into Istanbul, and Istanbul became the head of the Ottoman Caliphate. It's not even right to call it an empire, because it's very different on every fundamental level from what the Europeans call it. The British, for example, the British Empire. Not the same. It is not the same. And so Bayezid was the head of the Sultan. He was the Sultan of the Ottoman Caliphate when the Jews were and the Muslims were being killed and forced to convert and expelled from Spain, that had been run by Muslims for a long time. During the time that the Muslims were in control of Muslim Spain and Portugal, it's not just Spain, it's Muslim Spain and Portugal, what's called Al-Andalus or Andalusia. This was a place where the Jewish community thrived under the leadership of Muslims, and they were allowed to grow their tradition. Actually, the version of Hebrew that's written and spoken and read and used at this time was actually developed in Andalusia, in Muslim Spain and Portugal. And the foundations of the Arabic language were actually used to revive it. The Hebrew language was almost completely lost because of the fact that certain European Christian empires, not all of the Christians, but certain Christian empires were oppressing and killing Jewish communities and leaders and destroying their systems of learning and their institutions and their communities, etc. But under the Muslims, the Jewish community has rights. and they have to be respected because this is a community that follows prophets, that follows scripture. We believe that when Jesus came, Jesus is the Messiah. The Jews did not believe that. That's how we have these differences. They didn't accept Jesus as the Messiah. They're still waiting for the Messiah. The Muslims say no, that he was the Messiah. And then when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came, the Jews didn't accept him as a prophet. And the Christians didn't accept him as a prophet. The ones who did converted and became part of the Muslim community, the part of the Muslim family, the part of the Muslim nation. And so those Jewish people became Muslim. And then all of that region spoke and continues to speak Arabic. But the language of Hebrew was actually brought back as the Jewish community was thriving religiously, academically, intellectually, socially, culturally, economically, and in terms of business and development and things like that. The Jewish community thrived under Muslim rule in Spain and Portugal, in Al-Andalus, Andalusia, during that time. But when the Christians, Europeans retook control, they forced people to convert, they committed genocides, and they also expelled a lot of people. And so when they expelled the Jewish people from that part of the world, Bayezid II, who was one of the early sultans in this Ottoman Caliphate that was based in Istanbul, he wrote a letter to the heads of Spain. And he said, you've impoverished yourself and you've enriched us. And then he passed laws saying that the Jews that are coming here are citizens of the Ottoman Caliphate. They're full citizens. You have to fully incorporate them. If they want to be employed in your businesses, you have to employ them. If they want to rent from you, you have to rent to them. If they want to buy property, you have to sell them property. You can't exclude them. He made these laws, and he welcomed them. And, you talk to certain people who have long Jewish histories, you'll see that their families, several Jewish families lived in Istanbul and in Turkey under the Ottoman Caliphate because they were protected. And then some of them also lived in Cairo and in Egypt because they were protected. And they were full citizens, and they were not being oppressed, and they were not being killed, and they were not being huddled, and they were not being exterminated. That happened in Europe. It was Europeans, and I'm saying that as a descendant of Europeans. That was European Christians that did that to the Jewish community. The Muslims, the Arabs, the Palestinians did not do that to the Jewish community. The Jewish community was protected, and that's something we're very proud of. And so there are neighborhoods, and I said all that to say that people come sometime to Istanbul, and I'm talking about hosting people. Long tangents, I always come back. Stick with me, I always bring them back. So some people come to Istanbul and they're like, oh, I'm going to go to the great Islamic city of Istanbul, and I'm going to go for the last 10 days of Ramadan and have a profound religious experience, but I don't know where to go. So they go and they stay in Kadıköy, which has a lot of hotels, and it's got nice coffee shops, and it's got a lot of those kind of things that Westerners like. It's great restaurants and all that kind of stuff. But it's a neighborhood. It's one of the few neighborhoods, especially on the Asian side, where there's a lot of nightclubs, there's a lot of drinking. There's pork that's cooked and sold in the restaurants there. It's rare in Istanbul, but it's one of the places where that happens, And on the European side, there's a lot of that too. So the Turks are split almost 50-50 secular and religious. And in my estimation and from my observation as somebody who comes from the land of Democrats and Republicans, conservative and liberal, the like woke people on one side, the red pill people on the other side, whether we're talking about QAnon or neoconservatives or the extreme right or the extreme left, or I'm from a world where those are the markers and those are the dividing lines, and you're either on one side or the other of that. In Turkey is people that are secular on one side and people that are religious on the other side, and of course, as always, there is a lot of overlap. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, hayya ala salat, hayya ala al-falah, qad qamati salat, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. You can hear the call for prayer probably in the background. And so you have this experience. In my opinion, in my observation, the secular people and the religious people have really learned how to share public space together. And so they know that each other exists, but they do not do things in public shared space that would directly offend the other one. So you can drink. So like in my neighborhood, there's no bars. My neighborhood is a historically religious neighborhood. There are no bars. There's no nightclubs. Nobody's cooking and selling pork. There are certain places, there are certain stores, grocery stores, that sell alcohol. And they're even marked with certain awnings. And nobody's going in there and breaking all the bottles or standing outside, haranguing people when they try to go buy alcohol. You can go and you can buy alcohol and you can drink it in your house. Nobody's stopping you. Nobody's bothering you. Nobody's asking you questions. No one's harassing you. Nothing like that. You can do that. But they wouldn't drink in public because for religious Muslims, it's like that's troubling to us. You know what I mean? That's a troubling thing to us. It's like, everybody's got their different stance. So for people in Europe and America, drinking is almost like the religion of the people. Like we all come together and we drink. And if you don't drink, you have to explain why. Like you need an explanation for why don't you drink? You know what I mean? And people are mad at you for not drinking. It's like, are you in recovery? No, I just don't drink. Why? I don't drink. And if you say, well, it's for religious reasons, oh, you're a fanatic, you're a religious fanatic. But people feel like it's a cultural apostasy if you don't drink. And so in this culture, there are people that drink and there are people that don't. And so drinking, though, is like, imagine if you were to go to a place, and even if you're a drinker, imagine if you go to a place and people are just openly snorting cocaine, or people are openly smoking, meth, or you go to a place and people are, openly doing hard drugs that you don't do. You would be uncomfortable by that. You'd be like, oh, I think this is bad for you. I don't like the state that people enter into. If you're not in that state as well, then it's really off-putting. And like, I don't like the way that I feel. Like if you were to go to a restaurant, or similarly with smoking, and a lot of people do smoke in public, religious and secular people in Istanbul. So when you come here, there's like people smoking and you're like, yo, I'm breathing cigarette smoke. It's not that I'm judging you. It's just that like, that's off-putting to me. I don't like the way that smells. I don't want my clothes to smell like it. If you're a person that doesn't drink and you're not around drinking, and then you suddenly smell and see alcohol and see people consuming it. And for me, I'm sorry if this is hurtful, but to me, what's also troubling about it is that it feels like for people who drink all the time, there's a certain level of denial that a lot of people are in. Because, people say, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I just drink casually, or I just drink recreationally or socially or whatever. But you find a lot of times that people are not able to have a social gathering, or to watch a game, or to celebrate something, or to enjoy a concert, or to go to any type of social situation without drinking. It's like people get really uncomfortable if I can't drink. And for someone who doesn't drink, it's like that should be examined. That's something that should be explored. Why are you not able to enjoy a birthday party or a football game or, a card game? Or why is that a necessary thing? You know what I mean? Knowing that it has an impact on our own relationship with ourselves and with our emotions. And the same way that I would look at myself and say, okay, why a whole pizza? Why a pint of ice cream? Why overeat so regularly? There's an emotional thing there that needs to be addressed. And I can say, well, I'm heavy. I heard a joke recently where someone says I'm overweight because it runs in my family. And they said, no, you're overweight because nobody runs in your family. I think that's good. But it's like, if I know that I'm not able to Like, I think I saw one time Tina Fey was saying that she's like, I'm thin, but I also have this relationship with food where like I celebrate everything with food. She's like, we'll win an Emmy and I'll automatically be thinking to myself, what's going to be my food treat where I can celebrate? And it's like the Emmy wasn't the celebration. You know what I mean? It's like, well, now I'm allowed to eat cake or whatever it is. So doing the call for prayer. But, so there's something about drinking too that's off-putting to people who don't drink. That's all I'm just saying that to say that. And obviously, I work when I go and do my concerts, especially in America and Europe, they're in bars. A lot of them are in bars. And that's something for me to constantly be working with. And I've had friends that have been really active drinkers. And it's just always something that I'm aware of. You know what I mean? And it's not, you could say that it's judgment and it's easy to write it off and just be like, well, religious people are judgmental. But there are a lot of these addictions that we have. And I would say, even if a person says that I'm not an addict, I had a close couple that I was close to, and the husband has a drinking problem. He's addressed it in different ways before. So he'll go 3 months without drinking, or he'll go for a period without drinking. And then he'll say, well, all right, well, now I'm going to drink normally or whatever. And so the wife was like, well, what do I do about the fact that he won't stop drinking? He drinks too much. And so I said, well, have you thought about stopping drinking? Because like you drink. So if you don't drink and you don't want him to drink, then you guys can be not drinking together. But if you know that that's difficult for him, why don't you not drink? And she's like, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, why not? You know what I mean? You can't enjoy stuff without drinking? Then that's probably some level of addiction. But when you say those things to people as someone who doesn't do it, people get really hurt and offended. And you might be hurt and offended hearing this. And if you think I'm wrong, then you can think that. And that's fine. You can have that opinion. And I'm saying this as a person that's fully recognizing that I'm not superior because my addiction is food or eating too much food or the wrong food or something like that. I'm saying I'm spending deep time sitting with my own relationship with my emotions. If somebody says, well, I just smoke weed to go to sleep. You're supposed to be able to go to sleep like a natural thing for a human being is to sleep. So if I can't sleep without some substance, then that's a dependency and an addiction. If I can't relax, if I can't enjoy my loved ones without a substance, including sugar, and I'm saying sugar is that way too. And so I understand and I empathize with it, but I also, as somebody that has dedicated this time to really sitting with it and working on it, I understand that like part of what's so troubling to me about this stuff is just the self-deception that's involved. Like, yeah, that the self-deception is a thing. So in any case, the secular Turks or the Turks who drink, they don't do it in public except for in places where it's known that that's going to be. So there are certain neighborhoods like Kadakoy that's on the Asian side, but it's a Christian neighborhood. There's a church right in the middle of it, and the government keeps the church up and keeps it open. It's got bells. It's got the whole thing. There's another neighborhood near me. Is it Kuskunjuk? No, it's another one. In any case, there's a synagogue in another area near us. And in those neighborhoods, when you go to those neighborhoods, there are specific things going on there. But you'll find restaurants that cook and serve pork. And you'll find a lot of places that serve alcohol. And you'll see people drinking in public. But that's going to be in that specific area. Now, right, likewise, on the other side, for religious people, we know that there are secular Turks that have the feeling and are of the opinion that Islam actually held back the development of their society. And this is all very nuanced. It's not as simple as I'm stating it here. But there are people that have that, the secular, that's what means that they're secular. They say that like our over-dependence and over-reliance on Islam has stopped us from being able to really take part and compete in the modern world. The modern world isn't based on religion, it's based on nation states. And so they said, they disbanded the Ottoman Caliphate, and they said, we're going to be the nation state of Turkey. And, we have a flag, and we have a nationality, and our identity is no longer going to be Islam. Our identity is going to be the nationality of Turkey. And it's interesting because a lot of times those people are nationalists, and they can be xenophobic, and they don't like foreigners. So, shout out Amy Goodman, Democracy Now! I love them, Everybody has inclinations. I'm not a loyal leftist, but we all grew up everybody that grew up in the West, we incline towards the left or incline towards the right. I incline towards the left. I don't think that's a secret. But I don't sign on wholesale to everything that the left says and does, and how they do things and how they go about things, and, et cetera. But, Amy Goodman will talk about the elections in Turkey, and say, the conservative religious party won a victory, or the progressives won this. And it's not that simple, because these people that are being called progressives, they can be xenophobic. Not all of them, but they can be nationalist and xenophobic. And a lot of the candidates run on the platform of, let's get the Yabunjis out of here. Let's get the foreigners out of here. The people that are coming from the West, they're messing up our society and our economy because they're driving up the prices, and they're bringing all of this outside culture and influence. And, they come here, and we're losing our Turkish identity because of these people. And then the refugees that are coming, they're taking all our jobs. They're taking all our money. They're just living off of us. So they want to send refugees back to Syria, where they will be slaughtered. They want to kick the Afghans out in the street. And they want to send people like me and my wife and my family packing. You got to get out of here. Never mind the fact that me and my wife make all of our money in America and then spend it in Turkey. There's this feeling that the foreigners are destroying everything. And then again, that's not everybody. We're speaking in general terms, so there's going to be some unfair generalizations that are not true of every single person. So there are people that support, the secularist nationalist party that don't feel that way, and there are going to be people on the other side that, vice versa. Anyway, so the religious people in Turkey, like me and my family, we do not pray in public in any neighborhood. Even in our very religious neighborhoods, we don't hold gatherings where we sing songs about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or we don't make salat. We don't pray in public. There's a mosque everywhere, so you pray in the mosque. If you hang out with Muslims in the West, whenever it's time to pray, we're going to find a place to pray, and we're praying at the airport, we're praying at the gas station, we're praying in Target in the changing room, we're praying everywhere. We're praying at the park, we're praying at school, we're praying everywhere. We're just dropping down praying, and sometimes people are going to see us pray, and it just is what it is. I'm doing my thing. In Turkey, we would never do that. We would never pray in public because it's offensive to the people who are secular. So there's a mosque everywhere, but then even places that there's not a mosque nearby, like a McDonald's or a mall, will have a room for prayer because there's going to be people that are going to want to pray. And so we're going to have a place for them to do that, where you step into a private setting and do your prayer. So the secular people are not drinking in front of us unless we go to a place where that's what it is. And there are certain neighborhoods, not mine, but there are certain neighborhoods where all the men are walking around in turbans and what's called a jubba, or a long jacket. And all the women are, wearing their version of that. They're wearing the overgarment, and some of them they're covering their faces, and people are speaking Arabic and things like that. Now, also religious clothes. So our family as a religious family, if I'm going to wear religious clothes, it'll be Turkish cultural religious clothes. Every Muslim culture has its own dress. And so I wouldn't wear what we call a thobe, which is what a lot of the Arab countries wear. Arabs and Turks are not the same people. So I wouldn't wear a thobe. I wouldn't wear it looks like a long dress or something. The upper half is a shirt, but then instead of, cutting off at the waist, it goes all the way down to above the ankles. You know what I mean? And they're usually white. But they wear them in Morocco. They have one style in Morocco. They got one style in Sudan. They got another style in the Gulf region. They got another style, Yemen has their own, everybody's got their own style. But Turks don't wear that. Turks wear what they call shalwar, which is like these big pants. So the whole thing is that every religious Muslim, part of the requirement is modesty. So you have to obscure the shape of, not only cover the body, but also obscure the shape of the body. And so for the men, you have to not only cover everything, but also obscure the shape of the body from the navel to the knees, even while praying and prostrating and everything like that. So that's where in Pakistan, they have a shirt that goes to the knees. And so it's covering all that. In the Arab countries, for example, they have this shirt that goes all the way to the ankles. They do it different ways in different places. In Turkey and Central Asia, like this area, they have pants that are super baggy. People call them hammer pants. And I mean, they are that. They're super baggy from the waist to the knee, like huge, like 7 pleats. They're huge. And then from the knee down, they might taper a little bit, and then they're going to hit right above the ankle. And then you have a shirt. The shirt isn't all the way to the knees. The shirt goes like just past the waist, so that when you bend over and prostrate while you're praying, it won't reveal your back. Like it won't come up over your back. You know what I mean? And also the ideal for Muslim men is to wear long sleeves also, and to cover their head also. So you'll see certain types and styles of shirts, and then the long jackets, and you'll see certain types of head coverings also, every Muslim. So I say all that to say that when we're in religious clothes in Turkey, even for secular people, it's like, if I'm wearing Arab religious clothes, it's like, dude, come on, this is Turkey. This is disrespectful. And why are you why are you affecting me like this? The underlying reality here is that everything we do in public affects everybody. So this idea of like, well, I'm free and I can do whatever I want, and I can dress however I want, and I can do whatever I want, drink whatever I want, eat whatever, pray however. The reality is that everything we do around other people affects those people. And one of the things that Turks, I think, have done really beautifully is that they've learned how to be themselves in ways that don't directly offend the other ones, so that they can share public space. So even if I'm in Turkey, and most of the time I wear religious clothes, especially the more that I live here, it's just like, man, if you pray, like these clothes are made to pray in. Like if you want to go to the gym, my man Ahmed Fahmy that I mentioned, he wears gym clothes all the time because he's always working out. He's always either working out, coming from a workout, going to a workout. This man is working out all the time. So when you see him, he's in gym clothes. And for a person that wants to be about that life of like prayer, worship, it's easier to just be in these clothes that are made for this. But then also what I learned from being here is that the heat and everything, man, wear the clothes that were developed in the environment that you're in. So when I'm in West Africa, I like to wear West African clothes because that was developed by them. And interestingly, it's developed also for those body shapes and for body shapes. In Turkey, wear Turkish clothes, but then they're made for the environment. So when it gets really hot, those Turkish clothes, they're very modest, but they breathe, and you'll be cool and you feel good, you know. So a lot of people will come to Turkey and they stay in Karaköy, and it's like, man, you're staying. It makes a big difference. I'm just saying this to say that I've been hosting people, and it really matters how much, if you know somebody there, if you know somebody in the place, it makes a huge difference. Also the language. I mean, Turks for the most part speak only Turkish, but there are some people that speak some English. And there are people that speak a lot of English, but it's very rare. There was a study that was done recently where they were talking to people in Europe and Asia. They did a study of how many people speak more than just their mother tongue. And the Turks were number one in speaking only their own language. So there's not a lot of people that speak English and understand English and things like that. So when people come to town, I really feel like it's important for me to host them, because it's going to be a vastly different experience. You can go to Paris and probably figure out where to go. You can go to London and spend a couple days hitting a lot of the most important things. Turkey is not like that. I don't think. And then maybe I'm biased because I live here. But like if you come to Turkey and you go to the Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque and the Grand Bazaar, those are not that great of experiences, in my opinion. The Hagia Sophia religiously is very important. You know what I mean? So it's, especially for Muslims, or, you know, for people interested in history, that's a very profoundly important place. The Blue Mosque is beautiful, but in my opinion, there are other big mosques that are, I don't want to be impolite, you know, but like there are other big, grand mosques that to me have a better feel, and they don't have the same tourist experience. Like the tourist experience, especially lately at the Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque, which is really called Sultan Ahmed, is really whack. Like I can't stand the way they're doing it right now. But, you know, so for example, like if you go to the Suleymaniye instead of the Blue Mosque, that's an enormous mosque. That's an operational mosque. Visitors are welcome. There's volunteers there that'll answer questions for you in different languages. But it's a big, beautiful place that's not touristy. There's no weird, you got to go in here and it costs this much. Like they're not trying to charge. It's like, that is a big, beautiful mosque. You go to Fatih Jami. Like Jami is how they say, you know, the big mosques in Turkish. Fatih Jami. Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih, the one who opened up Constantinople for Islam. His mosque is a big, beautiful one. Bayazid II, the Bayazid Jami, the Bayazid Mosque, is one of the important ones to go to. Like that's the one who welcomed the Jews when they were being oppressed in Europe, and said that like all the Muslims fleeing Europe, they're gonna come home to the Ottoman Caliphate, but also the Jewish people as well that are being persecuted. You come here, we protect you. Our army and everything protects you, and you're a citizen and you participate in the economy and everything. You just live here completely, you know. So you can go visit his mosque, for example. But to me, the Suleymaniye is like, that's the one. To me, that's my favorite mosque. Outside of the main holy sites, I love that place beyond words. It's so dope. And the feeling in there, and the more you learn the stories of that place, you know. But then there's a tiny mosque that's to me more beautiful than the Blue Mosque. And it was built by the great architect of Istanbul named Mimar Sinan, who's a convert from Christianity. But that one is called Rustem Pasha, and it's in a neighborhood called Eminönü. It's right near the Spice Bazaar. So like when people come, I'm taking them to all these places. So you go to Eminönü, the neighborhood called Eminönü. You go to Rustem Pasha, which is a mosque, and then you go to the Spice Bazaar, which is better than the Grand Bazaar. You go to the Grand Bazaar. It's an enormous, very historical space, but a lot of what you're going to see sold in there are going to be replica Gucci bags. And those bags are well made. You know, they call them knockoffs. It's not like certain other places where you get imitation stuff. This is really well made, quality materials that, you know, they look. So for me, I'm like, man, I would buy this bag. I just don't want it to be fake Louis Vuitton. Like if you could make this if you could take the Louis logo off it, the LV off it, this is a great bag. You know, like they make sneakers and it's really, really very well made. But if you go to the Grand Bazaar, that's a lot of what you're going to see. But if you go to the Spice Bazaar, which is smaller, it's not as touristy. That's where people in Istanbul actually shop. And the things at the Grand Bazaar usually are overpriced. And so that's the kind of stuff to do. So B+, the photographer, came into town. Then our teacher, my family's teacher, Sheikh Mohammed Jailani from the Gambia, came to Istanbul. And so a number of his students came, and a lot of his students are my best friends. You'll hear me shout a lot of these people out on the podcast. You know, people like Imam Khalis, Sheikh Khalis Rashad in Houston, who is he's my homie. He's also a sheikh. Sheikh Muhammad actually gave him what they call the idhin and the ijazah and the permission to be one of the sheikhs in this group. So he's a sheikh. He's also my friend, and he's also my accountant. And he's in Houston. Beautiful guy, beautiful man, really, really profoundly beautiful man. True leader of people, very sincere, very focused. I'm just so honored to know people like this, you know. But my man Rami Youssef, the comedian, who was you know, actor and producer and director, and I mean, just amazing guy. We did a great conversation in person, actually in Philly on the podcast. he came, and all kind of people came through. Imran Ali Malik, my man, who's a great podcast producer among many other things. He's one of the people that worked on Chappelle's podcast, The Midnight Miracle, with Yasin and Talib, and my voice is kind of woven through there sometimes. But so far I haven't had a prominent role on that podcast, but I was there for some of the recordings. But a lot of the funnier moments, I'm not gonna be as much of a contribution to those. But there are times where you hear me either reacting to a story Dave's telling, or there's one time that made me feel really good. I had said in those discussions, the Black voice in American public life is the voice of God in the moral compass. And they played a quote by James Baldwin in relation to James Baldwin making a statement, and they played me saying that in the background. It's like little things like that make me feel really good. These are really dope and validating kind of things. Imran Ali Malik worked on that podcast, and now Sheikh Mohammed Jailani, our teacher, has a community in Colombia. And so several of the folks have gone to Colombia and sat with, we're coffee lovers. A lot of the Muslims love coffee in general. You'll find the people that love the Sufis, that love the Sufis, that we love specialty coffee. That's a thing that these people, Mukhtar El-Khanshali that I had on the show, go check that episode out. He's the founder of Port of Mocha, that he revitalized and revived the coffee trade in Yemen. Yemeni American brother, really beautiful, amazing story. So go and check out that episode. And there's a book about him called The Monk of Mocha. He's not the monk of Mocha, but that book is about his discovery of the Islamic history of coffee. It's actually Sufi Muslims who spread coffee around the world and introduced it to the people around the world. Even though it was discovered and founded and really developed in Ethiopia, in Harar, Ethiopia. But it was brought around the world, starting in Yemen, and then traveled throughout the world, through Java and through Mocha. Mocha is a port, Java is an area of the Nusantara. So this is how coffee got introduced to the world. So my man Imran Ali Malik, being in Colombia, took it upon himself to sit with farmers and to get to know them, and to say we're working here. Our teachers are developing here. There are people converting to Islam, and we want to work with you in a way that's ethical, that honors you, and that also produces beautiful coffee. So Imran Ali Malik came through and brought me some amazing coffee beans from Colombia. And Colombian coffee and Ethiopia coffee are my favorite coffees. So we had a lot of people in town, and so I'm hosting people at our house and taking people out on tours and doing all of this stuff. If you come through Istanbul, hit up Istanbul Spiritual Tours. There's an amazing historian. He actually is Colombian too. Abu Ayyub Marulanda, really dear friend, Abu Ayyub. Usted, or the teacher, Abu Ayyub. Colombian brother who grew up in Canada and New York. He's a convert to Islam. He married a woman whose parents were some of the founders of the first Puerto Rican Islamic communities in America and in New York City. Super dope. Alencia Islamica. Super dope. Man, this guy is incredible. Loves the history of the Muslims and of world history, but particularly Istanbul and Ottoman history. If you come to Istanbul, especially if you want to do a spiritual tour, Istanbul Spiritual Tours, and it's technically not a tour. He's technically teaching you about these sites while he accompanies you. But it's incredible. Please, please, please do yourself a favor. Check that out. It's worth every penny. I've been on his tours, 20 times. Every time is different. And there are people that have come to Istanbul year after year for 10 years. They've been to Istanbul 10 times. They do a tour with him, and it's I never knew that. And I never thought of it that way. It's so incredibly opening. So hosting people and doing all this stuff. Then Sheikh Mohammed and the community that came from overseas went to another city in Istanbul. I think it's pronounced Giresun, but they went there for a retreat. And then my man Ant came to visit Istanbul. which is huge. When my friends come visit me, BK1 came, Merce came and he brought his mom, Mally came, my cousin Joseph from the Bronx came, my man Alex came. We've had several people come and visit us. But man, for Ant to come here and to spend time and to visit, Atmosphere had a show in Amsterdam and one in Bulgaria. And so he came, man. It was like a dream having him here. It was so beautiful. And we spent several days together, being in the city. And, if you'd like to jump to conclusions about the fact that we had a photographer and the fact that we had Ant here, if you want to put something together from that, you can. And then if you want to sign the mailing list at brotherali.com so you get announcements when new things happen, you could do that. That might not be a bad idea. But man, Ant came through and we actually did some filming. How about that? We had some cameras around and so dope. So beautiful having him here. Then he left on a Friday, and that day our sheikh and the community came back to Istanbul, and our Sheikh Mohammed stayed at our house. And that was just one of the most beautiful experiences in the world. This is a person that we love beyond words, a person who just has the ability to command the hearts to be good. There's times where it's like, man, for me, I'm not going to work out very hard on my own. I don't know much about it. I didn't grow up athletic. I'm lazy. I've always been overweight. I got all these issues with my body. I did therapy just to talk about my body. And it's a thing, you know what I'm saying? I'm not the only one, but I'm definitely one. And so I go to a trainer, and a trainer is like, look, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to make sure that your form is right. I'm going to support you. And because I respect and love my trainer, his name is Emra, at MacFit in Üsküdar. Boom. If you end up living here and you're an English speaker, Emra is an amazing trainer. And then, I take people to my barber and I take people to my favorite restaurants and all this stuff. But, so Sheikh Mohammed came. It's like, I go to a trainer and a trainer is going to say, you can do it. And it's going to make me believe I can do it. And then my trainer, Emra, knows me and knows my body. And he knows so for example, I tried to go to a trainer when I still lived in America, and he was a younger guy and he wanted me to do squats. And my form wasn't right. And he was like, just keep knocking them out. You got to do 5 more. And so I'm like, I'm doing them and I'm getting tired and my form's not right. The bar went up on my upper neck, where my neck attaches to my big old head. And so, and I got these I get an overwhelming, headache is not the word, just throbbing pain that went through my whole body. And for a year after that, if I ever got really physically, if my heart rate went way up, you know what I mean? I would feel that it would be this crazy headache. I would get dizzy and nauseous and it's just from bad form. And so I told him, man, I had a bad experience. I had a bad trainer before. Not that he's a horrible person, but also that guy didn't teach me how to put the weights on properly. And so a weight slipped out of my sweaty hands and landed on my foot. It's like I had an inexperienced trainer who didn't know what he was doing. So now I have a good trainer that he knows me and I trust him. And I do squats now. You know what I'm saying? With heavy weight. And I'm like, yo, my body is strong. I'm capable of more than I imagined. But it's because I trust my trainer and because I have a good trainer that understands, okay, we have to build Ali up to this. We can't just say, oh, suck it up. Don't be a punk. You can do squats. What's wrong with you? He's very slowly got me to that point. Where we're going to start to learn the form. We're going to start to learn the movements. We're going to start to learn how strong your legs really are. We're going to start to train your shoulders to be able to hold the weight properly. We're going to, slowly get you to where you trust yourself, you trust your form, you build some, and then before you know it, you're doing squats. That's what a good trainer does. And for a sheikh, it's I'm hurt, I'm angry, I got issues, In some ways, I think I'm better than everybody. In some ways, I think I'm worse than everybody. Those are both the ego. And I need to be healed from that. I've got resentments. I've got fears. I've got hang-ups. I've got, things that I dislike about myself. I've got insecurities. And so the Sheikh is going to learn those things and know those things and really realize you can go farther than you ever thought possible. I had an episode a few weeks back called Forgive Everyone. You can forgive everybody. You can forgive and love the people that wronged you and wronged your loved ones. Doesn't mean you're going to keep allowing them to wrong you and your loved ones, but you can be in a position where you have no enemies. You can be in a position where you don't hold enmity or hatred for anybody. You can be that. Your heart is capable of that. You think you can't, but you can. You can be a person that can love and serve everyone. You can be a person that can fix problems between people. You can be a person that can foster love between people who think they hate each other. You can be a source of healing. You can be consistent. You can be disciplined. You can live by your morals. You can live by your principles. You can be a person of integrity who does what you say and say what you do. You can be a person that's not performative. And I'm not any of those, but I'm working on those and I believe it. A person like that that's so beautiful and you just see people wrong him and offend him and it doesn't land anywhere because his ego is basically non-existent. Like the ego is not present in this human being. He's just not tripping. He's here for everybody, but also tells the truth in really beautiful ways. And our Sheikh stayed at our house and just what it did for us and for our family is just really profound. And, having those kind of like intimate moments with somebody that you look up to and love so much, is a really major blessing. So that's been the past several weeks. And I want to talk more about some of the things that we've learned and things like that. We're almost at 2 hours. And I want to talk more about some of those conversations and some of those things that I've just been talking about and thinking about. So we got more episodes to come. Next week, inshallah, I'm having a conversation with the comedian Amir Rahman. Amir is an amazing comedian. If you may have seen, he's had clips that go viral, like periodically. So he's got one about reverse racism. That every couple of years it comes back and it goes viral again. And then he just did a whole new set on Israel and Palestine that is amazing. And so those clips from that have gone viral. Me and my friends, actually, he filmed it in London. And me and my friends in our neighborhood, he lives in my neighborhood, he's one of my dearest friends. We actually traveled to London to go see those shows and support him and be part of it. And then I sat down with him and we talked for 3 hours. So this is a person who is really quiet. Like he's a very private person. He's not out here trying to be famous and he just shows up and does something amazing. And then he'll just disappear for several years. And then he'll just come back off the bench and just kill it again. And just a brilliant again. Dave Chappelle said his reverse racism piece is the Rosetta Stone. So, but he's not a very, public facing person. Not that he's hiding or anything like that. But just he's quietly raising his kids and doing his work, and he works in media and stuff like that. He's doing his thing. But when he feels like there's something that needs to be said, he will just pop out and do it amazingly, beautifully. And so he's going to be on the podcast next week, inshallah. We sent Brendan 4 hours of footage that he has to edit together. So we pray that he does that. And I want to share just some of these lessons and takeaways and things like that. But I figured we missed last week. The episode with Amir is not quite ready to go. So this is just really a catch up to give you an idea for what I've been thinking about, what I've been talking about, what I've been doing. Yesterday when Sheikh Mohammed left, my whole family just slept. Like we just slept and slept. And that's one of the ways that he works on people. It's like a lot of times there's a big part of the work is sleep and rest. And there are sometimes people will go and see him and they're like, I'm going to get to work. I'm going to study this and I'm going to study that. And he'll be like, sleep, sleep, sleep. And you'll just find people sleeping for hours and hours and hours. And he'll say, sleep, sleep. It's It's one of the ways to work on the heart, So I have intention to share those things, and we've got this Blood on Beat course coming up, and we've got a really, really dope announcement. We have a project coming later this year that hopefully people really enjoy. This has been a really profoundly difficult period professionally for me, because I've made a lot of music that I feel really great about, and also it's a time when my little corner of the industry is just kind of not including me right now. So we had a distributor that was supposed to put out all this new music that we're making. They backed away and didn't actually say no. They said yes, they were all about it. And then they just kind of ghosted us when we were already in production with everything. So we've had to release everything and finance everything and just kind of figure it out. It's our first time, being on our own platform. And then publicists, we hired the big publicist that we've always used, that's always got us in those big platforms, just really getting the word out, that just to let people know, like, yo, we still make music, and we think that we're making our best music in a lot of ways. And so just getting the word out about that has been really difficult. And so I hired this publicist and got nothing. It's not, and then my booking agent, who's a Jewish woman who is really fighting for me, has not been able to get me a single festival. I have nothing on the books right now. And so people keep saying, come to this place, come to this place. I'm not being booked right now. I'm trying. I would love to come do all the festivals. I would love to come do everything. As of right now, no one's inviting me. And I've played all the biggest festivals, and even the more specialized ones. So there's not really a lot of hip hop festivals anymore. Shout out to Rhymefest. I played Rhymefest a couple years ago, and my guess is that if I hadn't played it a couple years ago, that they would have booked me. My guess is that they wouldn't have left me out this year. And really, this is related to me making a very direct stand about Palestine. And I've always done that, and I always will. In this particular moment, though, a lot of the people that make those specific decisions are people who are on the side of Israel. And, so October 7th, really was a profound experience for them. And in their mind, they have echoes of being tortured and terrorized and traumatized by Europeans, not by the Palestinians. Sorry, that's not what happened. Not by the Arabs, not by the Muslims. The Europeans are the ones that did that. But this connection that's been made in people's hearts and minds, that the nation, the Zionist nation state project, colonial project, that was called that by its intellectual founders, that is what means safety for them. So if you oppose that, the programming is so strong and the association is so strong that for them, what they hear as Israel, what they call Israel, means safety. And so if you are opposed to that, then it feels and reads to them as you're opposing my safety. And on one level, I want to be really understanding of that, but it's like there's a genocide taking place. Like, these people are the people with the guns and the bombs that my tax dollars are funding and supplying, are killing everybody indiscriminately. And their goal is to kill everybody in the region so that they can, it's their stated goal. Their stated goal is, we will control this entire land. And in order for that to be a reality, the Palestinian people have to be eradicated. And so the idea is to exterminate, commit genocide, ethnic cleansing, to kick out or kill the Palestinians, to the degree that that's what happened in Australia. That's what happened in the United States. That's what happened in Canada. That's what happened in this is not the first time this has happened. The goal is to kick out or kill all of the indigenous people so that this new state can become a reality that's not being challenged from within. And in the meantime, it's apartheid. And that's just the reality of what's going on. And so it's like, on the one hand, I want to be respectful of the fact that people have very real generational trauma that they're experiencing, and that trauma is very real. And, so this album that we just released is called Love and Service, and the producer for that project, who also did animated illustrated videos for all of the songs, is the brother Unjust, who is an anti-Zionist Jewish brother. And, we had Tim Wise on the show, and shout out to Sim Kern, and shout out to all of these incredible Jewish people that have spoken up and are telling the truth about what's going on. And in a lot of ways are being excommunicated and canceled within their communities. Jewish people that take that stand, I mean, I'm making a sacrifice professionally, but there are people whose families don't speak to them anymore. And there are people who are not welcome in their communities anymore. And there are certain pockets of professions that, the Jewish community has supported each other in. I mean, it's just the way that it is. You know what I mean? There's this, and it's a stereotype to be like, well, all the cops in New York are Irish. But there is a reality that Irish cats, were early inductees into the police force in New York City. And so there is that, it's a stereotype, but there's also a reality there, that there are certain industries where people have stuck together. I mean, I'll say that within hip hop, the reason that I was the opener for Brand Nubian and Wu-Tang and Public Enemy and Rakim and, Big Daddy Kane and MF Doom and so many people, I mean, there was an openness there because of the fact that I'm Muslim. And those guys are either Muslim or 5%ers or associated with the Nation of Islam. Islam in one of its urban American iterations and expressions, there's something there where it's like, well, yeah, that we, So artistically, within the culture, artistically and culturally, and I will say also that as a European American person, there are white people within hip hop that understand and accept and have a certain understanding between each other. So I've noticed that white people within hip hop work very easily together, and there is that kind of thing as well. There's fraternities. And on the business side of things, in the music and entertainment and sports, on the business side of things, there are a disproportionate amount of prestigious Jewish people that are in those roles. So a lot of the promoters that decide who's on the concert, who's on the festival and who's not. A lot of the distributors and record labels and the attorneys and that I'm not saying that Jews control everything. I'm not saying that Jews have a secret society that can whatever. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that a lot of the people that make those kind of decisions are Jewish, white American Jewish people. And so if they're experiencing that, or if there are communities or, business partners and sponsors, and if they're feeling this feeling, they're just not going to choose the person to put on stage who's saying free Palestine from the river to the sea, because that's something that is true to me. And I mean what the Palestinians mean when they say it. It doesn't mean that Jews can't exist. The nation state existing is very different from a group of people existing as a group of people, as an ethnic group, as a culture, as a network of families, it's not the same. It's not the same. And so, I'm saying what I believe. And my booking agent is a Jewish woman who went through her own relationship with this stuff. So, when October 7th happened, we weren't speaking for a while. And we came back and had a very real heart-to-heart. And she said, I believe you're coming from a good place. And I believe you have the right to say what you're saying. And so I'm going to go out, and fight for you and represent you. And I'm going to try to get you booked on things. And she's a Jewish woman. She's not doing it as a Jewish woman, you know what I mean? But she is a Jewish woman that's also my booking agent. And we connected because she left a major booking house, a major, what's that called? Booking agency. Because she said, her and a number of her friends said, I don't want to chase the newest, hottest thing. And I don't want to be forced to promote artists that I don't necessarily believe in their message. I want to believe in the message of the people that I'm promoting and that I'm working with. And I want to work with legacy artists who are dedicating their lives to it, even if I have to go independent. And so she did. I'm like, yo, that's what I'm talking about. So she's my friend, and she's a great person, and she's a mom, and so it took a second, but she came back and said, I came into this work and started working with you because you take stands based on what you believe in. And what you believe in is based in love and is based in truth and based in something beautiful. And I know that you don't have any negative or hateful intention behind what you're doing. And so I'm going to fight for you. And sometimes you fight and lose, you don't win, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you fight and lose. And so we have 0 bookings this summer. But we continue on because we have a good opinion of the Creator. I'm a spiritual person. I'm a religious person. I'm a believer. And the material world is being governed by and controlled by the Creator. Who is not material, who is outside of space and time, who is the cause of space and time, and is not a person, and is not a thing, and is not something that we conceive and hold a conception of, but is the source of all of this, the object of gratitude. So like if a person says, I'm grateful for my life, a lot of times people will say, well, I believe in the universe. And like, okay, I believe in what created the universe. Are we talking about the molecules? Are we talking about the planets? Did the planets make my life what it is? Did the stardust? Is it the sun? Is it we're just, it seems to me we're saying the universe because we're saying something outside of our reality. And yes, the author of the world of meaning, the unseen is the author of the seen. And so the Creator didn't only create the things, but is creating what transpires and what happens in creation. And a lot of times we don't understand what that means and why, but there's always good in it. And I have always believed that, as a fat albino from Minnesota, I wasn't supposed to rap, but I believe I wasn't supposed to be able to have a career at all. And then here I am 20 something years later, I released Rites of Passage, my demo tape that I made in Houston in a hotel room. I released that 24 years ago. Next year will be the 25th anniversary of that. And, so I've been at this a very long time, and I've been able to travel around the world, and still to this day, every morsel of food that's gone in my children's mouths have been from me making music and being involved in hip hop, art, music, culture, etc. So very grateful. And I've seen great things happen way too many times for me to not have a good opinion of the Creator. That sometimes we have to go through a test and a trial and we have to be patient, but I have a good opinion of God. So Allah is always going to give more than what our wildest conceptions, our wildest dreams. The biggest problem is that, Dame Dash, who's not necessarily, maybe he's talking about God, I don't know, but he says it doesn't cost anything to dream. Most people dream too small. Dream big, it doesn't cost you anything. And excuse me, my belief is like that. I believe that the Creator, it's nothing for the Creator to, so I believe that something enormous and beautiful is coming on the other side of this. And this is just one of those moments to I said what I said. I said what I said, and I said what's true. What I'm saying is true. There's a genocide happening. They bombed the zoo. They're bombing the mosques. They bombed the graveyards, except for the British graveyard. This is a colonial project. This is a European colonial project in the name of religion. I've seen it before. We've dealt with it over and over again. It's no different than what happened in these other places. And all I'm saying is that's wrong. And the indigenous people that lived with and on that land and belong to that land have the right to live. And it doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't have the right to live. It means that you don't have the right to replace the people that belong to that land. You just don't have that right to do that. It doesn't mean you can't exist. It means that you don't have the right to do that. And it doesn't mean that I hate you. I know that I descend from people who did what you're attempting to do. And it's not good. It's not good. Most of my ancestors are European, and a lot of them are British, and a lot of them are German. Like, I'm mostly British and German according to spitting in the tube and getting the results back. Not that I believe that stuff completely, but most of my ancestors, according to that, most of my DNA is consistent with DNA in those parts of the world. That's more truthfully saying it like it is. But so, okay, so I'm related to the Germans, I'm related to the English. I know what it's like. My father died of suicide, his father died of suicide. There were, deep dysfunction in our family, a lot of deep freezing of, people not being in touch with their emotions. I see what it's like to go to a place, to live in a place like America, where the indigenous people were saying, yeah, you can come live here. And the colonizers saying, no, but we're going to control all of it. We own all of it. We control all of it. And it's like, well, what are you talking about? Control and own. What does that mean? No, you can't run us off. Like, we're all going to live here. No, you're not. And so the attempt to wipe out all the indigenous people and then create a society, I see how sick it is. And now I don't live in that society anymore. And I see the abuse of people, like women being abused, children being abused, people shooting up, like doing, mass shootings, and, the extreme addictions, to all sorts of chemicals, and to porn, and to just all of these unnatural, dehumanizing escapes where we kill ourselves slowly to escape the fact that our lives either don't have meaning or are connected to really inhumane meaning that we don't know what to do about. And we just fight over how to make it right. But we all know it's wrong. We all agree that this is wrong. It's just, what is our assessment of what's wrong and what to do about it? But we all know it's wrong. We all know that this is not a way for a human being to exist on this earth and in our bodies and with each other. This is not the ways that human beings are supposed to exist. We know this is deeply and profoundly unhealthy and inhumane. We just disagree about what to do about it. And we don't know how to be with people that we don't agree with. So like, that's what happens if colonial projects get their way. That's what happens. And they're attempting to do that now. And I'm not going to not say something about that. And I haven't said anything hateful. And you're not going to, bully me or gaslight me into saying that I'm talking about nope. Have not, I say what I say, and I mean what the indigenous oppressed people mean when they say it, that they should be free in their land, in the land that they belong to, and a lot of the people that are called Arabs and a lot of the people that are Muslim now, they were originally people of Israel that converted to Islam and that they speak Arabic. Arabic is a culture, and it's based on language and culture and things like that. And there are Arabs that you look at them and you say, those people are black. There are black Arabs, a lot of them. And the advent of a person that what we understand to be white now is a very new thing on this earth. It's very new. And there's a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of methodology and ideology around what it is to be white, what it is to be European, what it is to colonize other people. That's new. And so that's why we don't like to say the Ottoman Empire, because when we say empire now, we're thinking of these modern colonial European situations. And the people who were unified by something like Islam is just not the same thing. Not that Muslims have never done horrible things, because they absolutely have. And being a Muslim, I have no problem with that. If somebody says they don't like what the Saudi government does, that's not you, and you don't think the Saudis should be in power, I'm not mad at that. You know what I mean? And I don't think that means that you're trying to, I'm not taking that to mean genocide. When people said that they didn't like ISIS or they didn't like Al-Shabaab or they didn't like whatever, I understand that. And for people, now if Bill Maher says it, Bill Maher is deeply racist and Islamophobic. He's one of my least favorite people in public life. I really can't stand that man. So when he says it, he's saying that all of the Muslims should be killed. I mean, he's advocated for this while people were bombing, while the U.S. and the British killed 1 million people in Iraq and Afghanistan because of 9/11. And Iraq and Afghanistan, even in the public narrative, even in the accepted dominant public narrative, had nothing to do with 9/11. Those people, if you believe the public narrative, came from Saudi Arabia. So why don't you go to Saudi Arabia? Why don't you deal with those people? You know, Hassan Minhaj criticized them, the Saudi regime, publicly, and got in some, had some situations because of it. And a lot of us feel that way. So, I mean, somebody like a Ricky Gervais or Bill Maher, somebody like that, they make their jokes about Muslims, and they talk about Muslims should be eradicated in religion in general, but especially Muslims, while 1 million Muslims are being slaughtered in their homelands that have nothing to do with 9/11 or anything like that. Killed 1 million people, 1 million. 3,000 people died in 9/11, and then they went and killed 1 million people that the only thing that they had to do with that is that they're the same religion. People in Afghanistan don't even speak the same language. It's not the same culture. The Afghans are not the same as the Turks. They're not the same as Arabs. They're not the same as East Africans, not the same as South Africans. They're different groups of people, different groups ethnically and culturally. So in any case, this is a really profoundly difficult time, but I am a believer and I'm happy. And, forgive me if I ever sounded anything other than that. Sometimes when you experience injustice, and I am experiencing injustice, it's nothing compared to the injustice that others are experiencing, but it doesn't mean that it's not unjust. It is. I'm experiencing injustice. And it's my right to tell the truth about that. And it's my right to be angry about that, because we have a natural aversion to injustice and we oppose it and fight it. And even when it happens to us. But the reality is that we are not the people of despair. And we know that those things are so temporary, and their ability to affect what we do or don't do are so temporal and so limited. And honestly, it's corny and it's just whack. They're like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? You don't have to book me fair. What's interesting is that I know the specific names of the people that decided not to release my records. I know the specific names of the people that aren't booking me for their big festivals and on their big stages. I know their names, and they know mine. And I know the people that didn't write about me when I put the Love and Service album out. I know the names of the people who made those choices that no, we're not messing with Brother Ali right now. It was cool when it was Black Lives Matter. It was cool when it was, anti-war. But something about this, careless, talking about the humanity of the Palestinians, not doing this, not doing that. I can speculate for why they're not doing it, but the fact is they're not. I'm saying, it paid for a very expensive publicist, the same one that told me, oh, so-and-so at this publication, they're the head of this big major publication. That guy loves you. I know he always writes about you. Nothing. Didn't even return the voice notes. Didn't even return the emails. This big person, they'll definitely have you on their festival. Nope, not this time. And these are people that are promoting voices on the other side. So it's not like we're just not going to touch this issue. And a lot of these decision makers and gatekeepers, I know their names. And the funny thing is that they actually love me. When they see me in person, they love me and they hug me and they want me to pray for them, and they want to tell me about their kids, and they're happy when I'm around them. And they bring their friends backstage, and their friends are trembling, oh my, I can't believe I'm meeting the guy that wrote Baby Girl, or I'm meeting the guy that, I'm meeting the guy that I have tattooed their lyrics, That's the situation. It's like that for years. And those people are not booking me right now. But hey, man, their feelings about things in this moment, I'm sorry, they're temporary. And it's always like that. And what falls and fails and eventually dies away is the empire, the oppression, because those things are built on fear. Those things are built on domination. Those things are built on lies. And the ultimate lie of it all is the lie of extreme individuality and the lie of this idea that we're all competing against each other. The lack of community, the lack of togetherness, the lack of compassion, the lack of connection, the lack of being deeply and profoundly connected. So it creates all of these lies that, in order, if I'm successful, somebody else has to lose. Someone else's success means that I'm missing out on something. There's a finite, limited number of resources and good. And if somebody wins, that means that that's a win that I don't get. You know what I'm saying? If somebody wins something, that means I have lost something. And that's not how we live. And those things are lies. Those are lies. The truth is that the Creator is capable of giving abundance and gives abundance to, and I'm not talking about wealth or prosperity preaching or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that when people live together and they're deeply connected to each other, then then we all win together and we all sacrifice together. And that type of mentality and those truths live forever. Those truths are undying, and we don't have to construct them or reconstruct them or deconstruct them. We don't have to reframe them and reshape them and rebrand them. And those truths are timeless universals. There are timeless universal truths. All we have to do is recognize them and point to them and invite to them. They're already there. And the people have everything that we need. We've got everything we need. What we don't have is togetherness. We don't have unity. We don't have community. And so, we're taught to get together to punish others. So we get together and we say, well, I'm canceling this person, or, my favorite celebrities that didn't speak up for Palestine. We're going to all join together and we're all going to unfollow them so that they fall in the algorithm. And we're going to punish the people that didn't say anything about Palestine. Okay, I get it. I get that. But what if we were to get together and actually support and help the people that have been talking about Palestine? And I'm not just saying that because I've been talking about Palestine for 20 years, my whole career. But what if we made sure, Amanda Seales, for example, is talking about Palestine, and, whatever. People have their critiques of Amanda Seales, and it's come to light recently that a lot of the people that are speaking against Amanda Seales are people that are pro-colonialism, and there is a funded campaign to discredit her. But even if that wasn't true, say not everybody likes Amanda Seales. Fine, that's fine. She's my friend. We did an episode of this podcast. You can go look at that, and it's dope. I mean, I love her. I don't agree with everything she says or does, but if you're talking about supporting independent artists, that's an amazing one that should be supported. I mean, she decided she wanted to be a singer and she was singing with Floetry. She decided she wanted to be a rapper and she's on Q-Tip's album. She decided she wanted to be a comedian. She's touring with great comedians and kicking it with Chris Rock and got a HBO stand-up special. She said she wanted to get into education and things like that and got a whole platform established. She said she wanted to get in radio, now syndicated on the radio all over the place. Said she wanted to get into acting. She's in the first independent Black woman, owned and created, syndicated show, Insecure. I mean, she's excelled at every single thing that she's done. So this is an amazing human being. So miss me with that. And when you're that, especially when you're a woman, especially when you're a Black woman, people don't like you. And so maybe people have bad experiences or whatever, but I'm not focused on that. And Amanda Seales is one of the people that speaks up the most for Palestine. So, okay, she just announced a tour, a stand-up comedy tour. If we can get together and cancel artists that are or public figures that haven't said enough about Palestine, what about if we all get together and make sure there's not a single ticket available at any Amanda Seales show? She was talking about maybe canceling some of the shows for low ticket sales, and she's so real about stuff like that. Most people say, I need to take care of I need to be with my family right now, so I'm canceling my tour or I'm canceling whatever. The ticket sales were just low. And so she keeps it so real that she's just like, hey, I forgot what city it was. I don't want to misquote the city, but she's like, so-and-so, y'all said y'all wanted me to come. I got 3 shows planned. One of them sold okay. The other 2 aren't selling at all. If you want me to come, I need you to buy these tickets because otherwise I'm going to have to cancel these shows. I'm going to lose money to come and do the shows. And I've been there, you know? So it's like, yeah, we can get together to punish people, but real community is about, you know, if we say we care about Palestine and we want to support people that talk about Palestine, when Amanda Seales concerts or the other people that have spoken about Palestine, a Sage Francis show, if Sage Francis, he does a festival in Colorado. If Sage Francis does his festival in Colorado, that joint should be sold out. Just from people that care about Palestine. Sage Francis was the first rapper this time around to make a song about Palestine. He made a song and he went on the record with it. And he hasn't released music in a minute. And he was like, yo, here's my song about Palestine. It's like 2 months in. Before The Collapse came out, before the other guy's song came out, he's the first. So if Sage is like, yo, strange, famous, you know, I can't remember the name of their event. But like when that happens, that joint should be sold out just from people who say they love Palestine. Like, yeah, I bought a ticket. And then maybe we all buy out his tickets and then we give him his tickets back and he can just make it free. Yo, it's free. and it's sold out and Sage and the artists that he's supporting get their money. You know what I'm saying? Low key, his shows should be sold out. Immortal Technique shows should be sold out. Immortal Technique shows do be sold out. But like nothing that these people do. You know what I mean? And you could go to your festivals and say, yo, I don't think I want to come to this thing unless there's artists on stage talking about Palestine. You could go to the promoters and say that. You could go to the promoters and be like, yo, I want Amanda Seales doing comedy at these things. I want Immortal Technique rhyming at these things. You know, I want Low Key on stage. I want Brother Ali on stage. You know, and unless I see that, you know, we're not trying to come to this festival. What about the part where we make sure that Sim Kern, as a Jewish person that tells the truth about what's going on, Sim Kern shouldn't have a book that's not sold out or a book tour where there's a single, like that's something that can be done. You know, I'm pressed up the Love and Service record. Everybody that was supposed to help just walked away from it quietly. They never even admitted why. And I understand that. You know what I mean? But when something like that comes out, the people that say we're gonna all stop following whatever, DJ Khaled, if he doesn't talk about Palestine, there's very real consequences for talking about Palestine, by the way. So like, and if we're like, what real community should be about is like, we're gonna make sure that if you speak up for what we care about, it doesn't matter if the industry walks away from you. We got you. We got you. So, you know, all right, the industry does, you know, you start manufacturing all these records and they're supposed to put money behind it. They're supposed to make sure that it hits the whatever. We're all sharing, you know, this song, or we're all buying this record until it's sold out. We all got you. You know, that's how community can show up. And if we're talking about connection, but we're so focused on just collectively punishing. And that comes from this mind state of, you know, we got to knock you off. We got to take somebody out. Who are we punishing? How can we be punitive? How can we, you know, who can we hurt for the right cause? And I understand that there should be consequences. There should be accountability. There should be some communal accountability. That's a good thing. I believe in that. You know, and that's your own sharia, by the way. You know, but what about the part where we as a community actually reward somebody? What about the part where it's like, yo, I don't know who this Sim Kern person is, but you know, they're writing they're talking about Palestine and they're writing all these buttons in there. They got all this stuff. Let's all just go follow Sim. Okay, we can unfollow so-and-so, but what about we all go support Saul Williams? Like, what if we say like, yo, Saul, how can we support you right now? What if we make sure that Saul Williams, being such the champion that he is for this cause, what if we make sure that Saul Williams, that this is his best year financially and it doesn't come from, doing a commercial with Nike, and it doesn't come from doing a record deal, and it doesn't come from being in a movie, and it just comes from the community being like, yo, we know you're taking a risk by talking about this. Boom. we're all gonna huddle around you, and we're gonna hold you up. Like, where are the champions being raised up by this stuff, you know? And so that's what it's always about for Brother Ali over here, except for the times when my ego gets in the way. So sometimes I might get distracted, might get mad at somebody, and you know what I mean? I'm gonna get distracted. But what you hear in all of these things, I hope, is hope itself, is the unifying reality of pain and pleasure and strain and pressure and highs and lows and joys and woes. And I make all things rhyme, being on time. But to talk about the human experience in a way that binds us all together. And then also just straight up the Us album. Boom. Okay, the Us album is about, what people are going through in my life and us seeing ourselves in each other's struggles. Morning in America, Dreaming in Color. This is a thing about coming together as a community, organizing as communities. That's what this is about. You know what I mean? All the beauty in this whole life, the spiritual connection between the hearts, that's what our stuff is about. So I'm grateful that you're here. Right now I'm talking, especially a person that's still listening at this point, I'm talking to the people that are really a part of this, to the people that are supporting. And it's not about being the biggest or the most famous. It's about being sincere. And I am constantly looking for the parts of myself that are not sincere to fix, correct, repair, and redirect those parts of myself. That's what the spiritual path is about for me. And for the people that rock with me, like, that's who we are. And it's not small. It's a revolutionary act to connect and to commune and to love and serve. Like togetherness, companionship, love, and service, really what it's about. That's why I call my album Love and Service. That's why Sheikh Muhammad talks about love, to bring us all together. Everything is there. Everything exists for us to have what we need. Everything exists for us to be able to do the right thing in the world. It's just that we're not unified with each other. Our hearts aren't together. Our lives aren't together. Our minds aren't together. Our bodies aren't together. And there's something about the simple thing of bringing people together around music and saying, like, man, we're all so distracted. We're all on such, there's such little presence. Sheikh Muhammad said, there are Muslims that are going to tell you that you shouldn't be rapping, you shouldn't be doing music. He said, that's fine if they believe that. But he said, there's such a lack of presence until music happens, and then everyone's on the same page. And he said to me, when there's a great hip hop artist, every single word has been put in its proper place. And so you have an entire group of people, whether it's a lot or a little bit, you've got a group of people present and with the same thing at the same time. And he said, and then once you have that, once you develop that ability and Allah gives you the right and the ability and the license to do that, then you start to put that message in there of love and faith and togetherness and connection and goodness and love and service, to serve one another and to be there and to sacrifice for each other, to sacrifice for what's right, to have gratitude to the unseen source of it all, to be loyal to what's right, to try to live our lives accordingly, to try to hold ourselves to higher standards, to be people of virtue and to be people of love and of justice and of truth and of humanity and of connection. That's what it's really about. So he said, yeah, these people can criticize the Muslims that are involved in music, these religious scholars, but they don't have the ability that you have. You're working in a plane that they don't understand. And he said it's also possible for music to be haram. It is also possible for music to be destructive. And he used the example, and maybe people who aren't Muslim might not understand this example, but he said, in Islam, for example, to slaughter an animal or to kill an animal and eat it without it being a sacrifice in the name of the divine is not permissible for Muslims to eat. But to do it as a ceremony and being humane, and to do it as a ceremony, then that's what makes it halal for the Muslims. So much of it is in our intention, and our intent, the locus, the place of the intention is the heart. And so the heart needs to be polished. The heart needs maintenance. The heart needs direction. The heart needs exercise. The heart needs correction. And so that's what we're here for. And that's what we're doing. And I'm not discouraged at all. Forgive me if I've ever sounded like that. I'm not discouraged in the least. Because the people that are known for being voices for goodness and for togetherness, they all go through it. Muhammad Ali is a bigger truth teller than I could ever imagine to be. And Muhammad Ali lost everything. And he said, never mind threatening me with jail. Get a firing squad here. Put me to death. I'm ready to die for what I believe in. That's Muhammad Ali. You know, Malcolm X. Like, these are the people that are on my wall. These are the people I love, the people that I'm, connected to. So if there's a little sacrifice or a period where there needs to be some patience. Patience is one of the great virtues. There's no patience without suffering, without sacrificing, without losing something, without being uncomfortable. So yeah, it means something. I didn't sell the records that I wanted to sell on Love and Service, and I think it's just because the word didn't get out, and it's not from we didn't try. But that wasn't meant to happen like that, and so it didn't. And that coupled along with the fact that I also don't have any festivals this year, those are the things that those are the delivery sources that we have relied on in the past. But ultimately, the divine is the one that is providing for us. And the divine can use these mediums to provide for us, but Allah doesn't need these things to provide for us. And Allah will give us something better. Anytime Allah takes something from us, it's because it's going to be replaced with something better. I just know that. It's been too many times. It's happened too many times. So even before that thing appears on the horizon, I'm excited for what it's going to be. I'm already grateful for what it's going to be because I know that's what this is. Also, I don't have a wife that's materialistic. That's a big part of it. It's a lot easier to be a principled person when your partner in life, when your wife is not a materialistic woman. And when she is also a believer and she also, she grew up in a project. So it's like, word, okay, what? You know what I mean? We're going to eat cereal with water. I'm cool with that. I've done that. That's not new. You know what I mean? We got to all move into a smaller apartment and, you know what I mean? The kids all sleep in the couch or we all share the bed. I've done that before. You know what I mean? And we're not at that place yet. But I know that woman. And I know that if we get to that place, she will be there and there will not be a single complaint. These are all gifts. All of it are gifts. All of this stuff is gifts. And your presence here is a gift. You listening to us is a gift. You supporting us is a gift. Being with you together in this is a gift. So we're very grateful to you all. Next week, we got an interview, inshallah. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Shout out to the Zakat Foundation for supporting this stuff as well. We'll see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.